Hello, everybody. Happy February and welcome to Phonogenics 101. I'm your host, Jeremy Gloff. Thanks to everyone who subscribed on YouTube. Every day I look, the numbers grow. Thanks to my Patreon subscribers, which we have a bunch of them on this podcast. So thank you all for supporting me. This month, I used your donations to fund the deluxe editions of my last two albums, Burn It Up, Turn It Up, and The Box. The Box I released in 2019, and it was a really personal album for me. My dad had passed away and I'd inherited his guitars. So I started writing songs on my dad's guitars and then released the album. So it's great to give it another chance and put it back out there because COVID hit and I never got to promote that album properly. But tonight we're going to talk about a songwriter that's actually good, unlike me. Joni Mitchell. We got through the 60s with Joni, the 70s, the 80s, and we've now moved on to someone's. Do you guys hear that feedback? It's gone. Okay. We are now into the 90s with Joni Mitchell. Our friend Bob here, who's been with us since the beginning, has to leave today early because he has family visiting from out of town. But we could not do this podcast without Bob's insight and his knowledge of how many covers were done of each song. So we're going to do a little lightning round here. The album we're discussing is Night Ride Home. And before we introduce the panel, we're going to have a little one-on-one with Bob to talk about how many covers from each song there are. And let's see if I can remember the track list off the top of my head. All right, Bob, Night Ride Home. How many covers?
Well, there's 46. Before I get into the covers, though,
okay,
I'd like to put some general comments out there about this record. As you know, I was not a fan of either Dog Eat Dog or Chalk Mark.
I know.
But Night Ride Home, she regains her juju. This record was, I think, a real return to form for her. I bought it on CD, unlike Chalk Mark, which I didn't buy when it came out. I loved this record. I still love this record. It hadn't dated itself at all. The songs are good. They're fresh. Gone was all the celebrity duets. Gone was the 20 engineers and studios and producers. It's very, I think she saw her vision and was very clear here. And it's very very solid project. So for me, it was a breath of fresh air from someone who I loved for a long time and was worried about it, had misstepped. So general comment is that it's her 14th album, her last album for Geffen.
Mm-hmm.
It reached number 41 on the U.S. Billboard chart. Singles, they had Coming from the Cold edited version because it's a long song. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Ray's Dad's Cadillac, and the LP version of Coming from the Cold. The other single was Night Ride Home, and B-side was Slouching Towards Bethlehem. Odd choice for a B-side. And of course, neither of those singles did much. They were CD singles, which I don't think any CD singles did very well in the era. It just wasn't made for that. So I love this record. My rating for this is, I'm torn between 7.5 and 8. So I'm giving it a 7.75. So
what did you give Chalk Mark? Remind me what you gave Chalk Mark.
Chalk Mark, I was 2.5, I think.
Ooh. My soul still hurts from last month's podcast.
I think I gave Dog Eat Dog a 3, and Chalk Mark had to be below that.
It was a little rough going through 80s Joni with everybody.
But if you're a child of the 80s, I understand. That's you're plugged into that sound.
Yeah.
I'm a child of the damn 50s, for crying out loud. We grew up in the 70s. So anyway, so obviously a lot more singers and songwriters appreciate these songs more than Dog Eat Dog and Chalk Mark as well, because there's many, many, many more covers that happened off of this record. We'll start with Night Ride Home, a total of 46.
Wow.
Which is probably 45 times more than what was on Chalk Mark. The first one was 1996. It was by a band that Irma Schultz cobbled together. Jamie from Holland, and it was the band was called The Bird That Whistles. And if you recall from last month, they were the only group that covered A Bird That Whistles on Night Ride Home. But on Chalk Mark. So they were the first ones to do Night Ride Home. It's been done in Dutch language. No other real celebrities that have done Night Ride Home, but a big long host of some really good singers. And this is a gorgeous song. I know y'all will talk about it and it's just it's a very romantic song. It just gives you such a nice feel. The Passion Play, 5 covers of that. This is maybe my favorite song on the record. Obviously, lots of religious stuff, which I'm sure y'all will get into. Mostly the story of Zacchaeus, the tax collector, and all that. And that was done first in 2002 by Big Yellow Taxi. Henning and Christina did it on their record, 2002. Cherokee Louise. This is a wonderful song, a very moving song. It's a shame that I really can't hang out and talk about all these things in length, but I know you guys will cover it. And when I get back from surgery, I look forward to the 5 hours worth of video I'm going to watch to hear you guys covering all these songs. 29 covers of Cherokee Louise. First started in 1999 by artist Chris Gonzalez. And then, of course, Karen Paris from Innocence Mission does background vocals on this song. I'm not sure what that connection is, but maybe one of you guys do, and I'm anxious to hear what that is. Windfall, my least favorite song on this record. We talked about Snarky Joni back when we did Furry Sings the Blues. This is mega uber snarky Joni, and a real negative song that just had really bad vibes for me and for every other singer, because nobody's recorded it yet. Nobody wants to sing
really?
No covers of Windfall. Slouching Towards Bethlehem is a fairly long song, so it would be a challenge. Has been covered 3 times, including in Dutch language. And Angelina Josephine in 2005 was the first singer to cover this one. Coming from the Cold, I like Coming from the Cold. It's a good personal song. It's the second Joni song that mentions my birth year of 1957. The other one being Raised on Robbery with the 57 Biscayne. So I like this song a lot. It's a very personal song, but I think it's one of these songs where Joni writes in the personal, but almost makes it universal, being at that age and time. And even if we were in 57, in the 70s, we were still monitored when we were dancing in the high school gym at high school parties. And it's been covered twice, both by the same artist. Cheryl Barnes covered it in full and in an edited version. 2014 was when she first covered it. And I remember when I discovered this cover in 2014, I said, wow, somebody did Come In From the Cold. The whole version. Didn't skip it, didn't cut it or anything. Nothing Can Be Done is another song that I think is in that same category of songs as we get older. I'm not old, but I'm not young. I think it's a great tune. It's only been done once, and that was by Los Lobos at Joni's 75th birthday party. And they do a great version. I mean, some of you were there to hear it. I'm sure that all of us own the DVD, CD, whatever, and they really kill this song. It's great. Only Joy in Town. I know Sue loves this song. She does a real pretty version of it. I was never much of a fan of the song because I just don't know why it exists, frankly. I mean, lyrically, it just doesn't do much for me. And it has never been covered. Not that I'm aware of, I'll say.
Actually,
and trust me,
there was a killer, William Waddell did a brilliant version of it, totally different at the Dorset Fest in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, people have sung it, but as far as
Really?
What meets my criteria for covers, it's not out there anywhere. But it's a pretty song. I think musically it's a nice song. I like the guitar work on it, but I just scratch my head over the lyrics. Whatever. But Joni's happy. She's writing good songs, so I'm happy. Ray's Dad's Cadillac. 2 versions of this one, actually. Both were from the same band. The Steve Klink Trio. Steve Klink, a German jazz artist. He did this one instrumentally on his first studio album in 2002. And then he put it on a live record and put it on the live record as well. So there's 2 versions of it by the same artist. And it's fine. It's again a song that's so personal for Joni, singing about being in a math teacher's, the back of the Cadillac car. It's hard to relate to, but it's a nice enough song. I think the instrumental's good. Then we come to what is definitely my favorite song on the record. I think I said a Passion Play, but Two Gray Rooms is just genius. Of course, she had this song, at least the melody in her head for a long, long time, and the words came much later. And this was the only one I think produced by Henry Louie, who she kind of reconnected with for this record. And it's got 18 covers. First in 1982. I'm not sure why I don't have who recorded the first one. Chaka Khan did it on the 75th birthday record. But it's just a really, really beautiful song. Tom Wopat from the old redneck show about the two guys in the car and Daisy Dukes and all that.
Dukes of Hazzard?
Dukes of Hazzard TV show, yeah. So Tom Wopat did it, but he's, instead of being about a guy, it's about a girl. Her hair's, instead of her shirts being undone, her hair was undone. So I'm not sure why you got to do that, but that's what he did. But every version of the song out there is really, really nice. It's just a really, really beautiful song. So just to sum it up and let you guys get at it and start the discussion, which I'm sure will be nothing but mostly good stuff. Love this record. I was really, really happy when it came out. And it was a really, really nice return to form. So thanks for accommodating me, and I look forward to hearing what all you guys have to say. I love you, and thanks for hearing me out.
Perfect. I'm going to pause it so we can say goodbye to you, Bob. All right, so we have a nice, robust panel tonight. A couple ground rules. If you can, try to raise your hand, and I'll try my best to keep track of the order. If not, jump in and yell at me. Let's try to keep the discussion on topic because we have a lot of people and we all love this album. And I do want to try to make sure to do it in one part if possible. Yeah, we can do it. We can do Night Ride Home in one part. All right. Well, let's go through our panel here and have everyone introduce themselves and kind of talk about their emergence into this wonderful album. I'm used to having Bob in my upper left, but since he's gone, I now have Dave and Robin in my upper left.
It's an honor to be in your upper left. I don't actually remember how this, we were just kind of collecting all of Joni's records, and I forget what order it was. So this is long after we became fans. So I think we just bought it in as it came out, and but I don't remember a particular connection with it right away, except that we started learning some of the tunes off of it. Do you remember, honey?
I don't.
Yeah. So no particular.
I like this album very much, and we recorded it on our first Joni album. We recorded 3 of them, right?
Passion Play, Cherokee,
and Night Ride Home.
Yeah.
So it's a because it's not overly produced. It works well with just guitar and vocals and.
Well, some of the albums are overly produced, but some of the tunes are not. But they're tuneful and easy to play, so that's nice too.
All right. Next we have Ruben.
Hello, I'm Ruben. I am in very southern Maine, USA tonight, and it's about 10 degrees. So if it's warm where you are, I hope you're happy. Night Ride Home was the first Joni album that I waited for it to come out. Like the reviews came out weeks ahead of time, and I waited and waited and waited. And I had to special order things back in those days because we lived kind of in the country, and it was just hard to get Joni stuff. So I drove this poor guy at this record store where I would buy stuff called the Sound Resort in Conway, New Hampshire. Crazy, because I kept calling and calling and calling. Even though I knew when the release date was, I kept calling just in case he had it early. And he finally asked me to stop calling. They knew me pretty well. But I love this record. It's always been one of my favorite Joni albums. And I would be interested to hear, Dave, about what you think about the production on it. I always love to hear your production notes on things. So anyway, Thank you.
All right, next we have Paz.
Good evening, everybody. Michael Paz. I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I, too, love this album very much. It came out after I was back living in the United States. This is, a continuation of an album that I enjoyed with my wife, and that we got it as soon as it came out, and it became part of the stuff that we listen to, when we're listening to records at home. I got it on vinyl to begin with, and then eventually on CD as well. During this period, Joni spent quite a bit of time in New Orleans. She came and she played. Trying to think. I think it's called Gavin Convention. I think, and she did. I heard her in a room that could fit about, maybe 100 people, and they had a pretty nice PA system with a little riser for her to stand on, and she came in and she was playing these songs. These songs, and I think, as I recall, some of the stuff from Turbulent Indigo ended up at this same thing. But yeah, it was a very small room. My friend was the front of house engineer, so I snuck in there. I didn't have a badge to be in the convention. I was just a fly on the wall, and it was amazing. She did it all acoustic guitars. She had no VG8 at the time. So it was really special. Yeah, and a lot of these songs are very special to me. They've got, special meaning, all of them. And yeah, very high marks for me.
All right, Jamie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie. I'm calling in from London, and nice to see everybody. And Night Ride Home was the first album that came out after I was totally immersed in the music of Joni Mitchell. I guess when Chalkmark came out, I was kind of like not that much of a fan, but then by the time 3 years later, I was obsessed by everything that she did, and I probably collected most of everything. So this one I was really eagerly anticipating, and even the picture at the front was like, oh wow, it's a photograph and it's different from all the other albums. And I think there was I think Now magazine came out, and it had the album on the back cover, which I was like, oh my god, Q magazine. So I was really pleased. I was like, I got a huge picture of the album, so I was really happy with it. Yeah, I can't wait to get into the bones of this album, talking to it with you guys. We're looking forward to listening to people's versions, and it's the first the first album of music which I was able to play, because I'd got my guitar by then and learned the open tunings, and I was really excited because of the songbook as well. The songbook was really kind of like, oh my god, it's open tunings. What is this about? So yeah, really excited about it. Haha, yeah. Cheers, Chris. Okay, next.
All right, Sue is next.
Yeah, I mean, so I call it Sue the Missing Years, because after Doggy Dog, I don't know what the hell happened between 1985 and 1994, but I heard about Turbulent Indigo, and I went and got it, and I listened to it, and I'm like, oh my god, this album's so great. And then I found out there were two missing albums that I didn't have. I didn't have Chalkmark, or I don't know where I was. It must have been, my daughter was really young, and we just moved upstate, so I was just, and plus anyway, a lot of stuff going on. But so I went back and got Night Ride Home and Chalkmark, and Night Ride Home for me was like almost like listening to Hijira again, in a way where the songs were so deep, and the guitar playing was so amazing. And I really didn't get into playing the open tunings for another couple of years after that, but I knew that the the musicality of it was just so gorgeous, and the way she was playing her guitar was just, it's like a master class almost. I just love it. And the songs, I right away I loved Passion Play. Because I was still like, a little closet Jesus freak, so I was like, yeah, this is so great. I knew the story, and I just, all the way the song goes, with the kind of talking about all the slave. I love that line. All the slaves are free. What are you gonna do? Who's gonna do the dirty work when all the slaves are free? What a great line. So, I just really, really loved this album from start to finish, and really, Turbulent Indigo, as far as that goes, is, I feel, her, another masterpiece. But, Night Ride Home, in a way, is like this first. It's like a second wave of Joni. It's like her intense art is coming back, in a sense, where it's just her guitar, piano, and incredible lyrics and music. And I was just thrilled.
All right, next we have Chris.
I always have to jump for the control. Wow. Okay, so this record, I think I hinted last time to y'all that between the release of Chalkmark and this record, I actually had the glorious opportunity to have met Joni Mitchell. And when that happens, of course, I happened to be living for an extremely long period out at a really nice hotel in Los Angeles. And the Innocence Mission was playing a show at the Roxy, and I went to see that show. It was a Monday night, February 26th, 1990. And I had to shoot the next day in Glendale. So I knew it wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to be that late. Now, the thing was, is I woke my wife, my now ex-wife, up at 2:00 in the morning, screaming into the phone how I had just met Joni Mitchell. When you meet somebody that is actively creating, I was waiting for this record to show up, because all I wanted to find out was, did she write a song about me? Just the most ridiculous, sort of dreams or hopes that you could, possibly integrate yourself into somebody else's creativity and make a difference, So listening through it and over the years, I can postulate little bits of things of, reasons why and how I contributed to this record somehow, to the point where I'm sure if you don't already, you'd want to have me locked up in an insane asylum. But just to let you know, is I have a very, very strong personal attachment to this record. I am so happy that it was as creatively successful as it was. Yes, it was hailed. People have already used the phrase on this podcast. A startling return to form is what the critics said about it. And it was. Her guitar playing was back. You could hear it, mixed prominently in the mix. Her vocals were back up big. She was using the hammering techniques and all of the things that we kind of sort of loved, but in a new way. She really brought, I think, something of what she'd learned from her her sidebars along to it. There is an orchestral feeling to this record that still uses her earlier techniques in new ways. Anyway, I just love this record, and I'm so happy to be talking about it today.
Awesome. All right, David's next.
Hey, I'm David, in Toronto now. And so I've been in love with Joni since Blue. So I was certainly aware of this as soon as it came out, and I'm sure I bought it as soon as I could. I don't have a whole lot to say about it right now. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful album. I remember very clearly the first time I heard it and what was going on in my life then. I was actually building a house, so involved in my own creative process. It was a lovely time, and it was a great album. So,
All right, Laura.
Hey, everybody. Good to see y'all. I'm Laura. I'm in Arkansas. And I was a latecomer to this album, but I echo all the sentiments to it. And, it was like finding something very special, not knowing that it was around and then finding it. That was pretty incredible for me. And to me, the album is so thought-provoking. Every one of these songs just draw me in, even Ray's Dad's Cadillac, for as silly as that, is, it draws me in. And, there's a lot of things on here that are humanistic and get you to think about how people treat other people. And, and then there's just the beautiful end of it too. In particular, the lead track, Night Ride Home, that song to me, it's almost like the opposite of Urge for Going. It's like now you're taking your night ride home, and it's the 4th of July. It's nice and warm, and you can hear the fireworks, and so everything is just warm about it. And another thing that really drew me into the album, just seeing the album, were Joni's blue eyes. Her eyes on the cover of this album are so remarkable. And I like the way that she has returned to form, as y'all have been saying. It's just always there with her. She's always got it. And this album, like Two Gray Rooms, it's so thought-provoking and it's so deep. I mean, she goes into meditation when she's writing these songs, and she, it's like she's there. And I just love the video of Night Ride Home. I'm sure y'all have seen that. And she's got the mask and everything. But anyway, her understanding of people is just so incredible. And that's what comes out to me on this album. Good to be here, and looking forward to the discussion.
All right, we got 2 more people to introduce. Up next is Mark.
I'm Mark, and I live just north of Seattle. I remember hearing, and I'm pretty sure it was Slouching Toward Bethlehem on the PA system in Tower Records one day. And I was not aware that this record had come out either. And I was like, my ears just went, Joni, I haven't heard this Joni before. There's new Joni. And I was very intrigued by the sound of it, and very excited. Unfortunately, it was kind of a down part of my life. And money was really tight at the time. And so I didn't buy it right away. And I did tape it off of a friend's CD and played it in my car almost constantly until I think I finally found a used copy of it that I bought. Anyway, a great change came over my life at some point not too long after this. In February of 1993, I lost my partner to AIDS. And now I have a husband who I found in 1995. And we were in Future Shop one day when there were Future Shops, and this was there. I don't know if you can see it or not.
I love it.
It's a special edition of this record.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that has cards in it of the photography and kind of, it's like a portfolio and everybody else is holding it up because everybody else has it. But
We're all completists.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's also in the Geffen box set remaster. So I've managed to get Night Ride Home since then, and I love the record. I think it's an absolutely beautiful record, some of her best writing, and as everybody else has said, a return to form. So that's it.
All right, and we've worked our way down to my bottom right. We have Jack.
All right, I'm Jack. I'm in Bartlett, Illinois, which is like a western suburb of Illinois. I agree that this was really kind of a return to form for Joni, though I really loved A Dog Eat Dog and I didn't mind Chalk Mark. To me, this was a step above those. And probably the greatest memory I have of this is one of my closest Joni friends. She would come over to the house a lot and we would play Joni music all the time. And a friend of ours was dying of breast cancer. So we decided to take a drive out to her. And she's probably about an hour from where I live. And it was a absolutely gorgeous kind of end of summer day when all the wheat fields had turned golden and the sun was in the right angle. So like it was like a Van Gogh painting. And we had the top down and we had Night Ride Home blaring from my stereo. And it was like a religious experience. The two of us were just like mesmerized by the whole scene. And it's one of my most meaningful listening to Joni with someone else experiences ever.
All right, so clearly there's already a lot of love for this album. It seems like we're gonna have a really positive, uplifting discussion, unlike last month. So so this is my journey to Night Ride Home. As we all remember, Chalk Mark was an album where I entered the Joni universe. And then it was probably like 1989, early 90. So I had a couple years of waiting for a new Joni Mitchell album. And this was before the days of the internet. So I didn't even know if she was recording or if anything would be coming out. She'd done the Wall live in Berlin, Goodbye Blue Sky. So that was kind of like the first post Chalk Mark thing that I got a hold of. And her voice was a little bit deeper and I loved it. I thought it was great. So there was an entertainment magazine, and the first thing I ever heard about this album is there was a little tiny blurb that said Joni Mitchell's working on her new album called Night Rides Home. It had an S. So I went back to, I guess I would have been in ninth grade, like telling all my friends, like, Night Rides Home is going to be the next Joni Mitchell album. And another year and a half even went by before this album emerged. And I looked, it was in February 1991. And I remember it being very cold because I grew up on Lake Erie in Western New York. And it was definitely a cold day when this album came out. I remember walking into the Record Giant, which was our local record store. These were the days when you didn't know what the album cover was until you walked into the record store and there it was. So there was the long box, because that's when you had the long boxes. And this is what we saw. And I took the album home, I put it in my CD player, and I just loved it from beginning to end. It was love at first listen. As we all remember, I did love Chalk Mark, so I didn't think it was better, but I definitely felt it was pure and different and just very genuine. It just felt like a very genuine album. So before we get into the song by song, let's talk about the album cover. So I remember in the Joni Mitchell interviews at the time, she was describing this as the seer and the scene. So she was taking pictures of things and then turning the camera back on herself was her gimmick at the time. I don't know if that's the right word. But what did you all think of the album cover the first time you saw it?
She started the selfies.
No, she did. Ruben.
I love this cover. I think this is one of my, I mean, I like this one as much as Hijira, actually. It's kind of spooky. Her eyes are so blue. I love the back cover, which I have the vinyl somewhere. It's on the shelf.
Is it this one?
Anybody? Yeah, that with the kind of her face. What's the one on the back of the actual back of the jewel case?
It's just the track list.
There's another one in there. Maybe. Anyway, her face, her lower jaw looks almost like a skull. Yeah, that must be what I'm thinking of. I just think it's really cool against those desolate backgrounds. It's a great cover.
I love her name in purple with the blue font on the album title. It just really set a mood, right?
Mm.
All right. Any other thoughts on the album cover, Mark?
I love it. As Laura alluded to, the blue eyes, very striking. And there's an aura of mystery about it. She looks like, I don't know, a femme fatale or a spy or something, peeking in through something, or partially veiled. I don't know. There's just something very mysterious and beautiful about it. I like it a lot.
Can you show some of the prints that's inside the special package that you have? I couldn't find mine tonight. I was looking for it, but there was some really nice stuff. And I remember I got a copy from the record company that year when it came out, and that's what they sent me. It was really special. The little tie thing.
Oh yes. And then another promo that came out at the same time is the CD of the Night Ride Home radio program, which is a little interview from this era. So I didn't even know it existed until a couple of years ago. Oh, Chris.
She seemed to, her photography, well, first of all, I want to note that objects are closer than they appear in the mirror. But she was doing all of these double exposures. These are all double exposures. I don't know if she just rewound the entire roll of film in the camera and then re-shot them, or if she set them to just not move to the next frame until. It seems to me that the locations change. For example, the cover shot, you can see there's mattress ticking behind her. And then that I find really, really interesting. This is like her version of a real road trip with Larry, to the point where, his silhouette's on the cover, with the toothpick in his mouth, they're on the road together, I think he's driving at that point, if she's shooting from his right side. This is very much a couple record, in terms of how it got to us. But I think she overall, took a little bit more control over the sonic path along the way. And maybe, Dave, when Dave talks a little bit about that, he can discuss what he hears and how that differed from what Larry might have been doing. But in terms of the cover, I think that this was her feeling her way with that camera. And
didn't he shoot some of the pictures as well?
That's a good question. Let me look here.
I don't know. I was looking for it on the album liner notes, but I just remember them talking about both of them taking a lot of pictures on that trip in Hawaii, right?
These are not Hawaii because there's grain elevators and and barns that are falling.
I feel like they're going through Canada.
Yeah, I think they're going across Canada. Says here, I'm looking for.
Sue, you're next after Chris, just so you know.
Oh, you can go ahead, Sue. For example, you see this doesn't look much like Paz. I don't know if you can see these.
Yeah.
This doesn't look much like Hawaii.
No.
He's saying in a wheat field or someplace in Canada. Among the mattress ticking. Photography 1991, Joni Mitchell. So it's all her.
All right, Sue, then Jamie.
So I don't know how much control she had over the videos that were made for this album too, because they were really in the same kind of theme, the smoky kind of muted colors, I really loved the Coming from the Cold video.
Me too.
That was really great, and it showed a lot of her playing guitar, but it was all very atmospheric. And then the video for Two Gray Rooms, oh my God, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And and another theme of this album that I wanted to bring up when I talked about the album as a whole, and I forgot, was the whole idea of growing older. And I think Bob talked about it a little bit when he was talking about the covers. And in the video of Two Gray Rooms, she's in front of the mirror going like this, like pushing up her eyes and stuff, and it's just so amazing. I mean, it's a very muted, black, gray, and white.
Good point, Sue. Didn't she refer to this as sort of middle-aged love songs?
Yeah, I think she did.
Yeah. Promos.
Yeah, I mean, talk about Nothing Can Be Done. I mean, that song kills me. But we'll talk about that later. I just wanted to compare the videos to the photographs on the album cover.
And how old was she when this came out? 47, 48?
Yeah, I think so.
She was born in 43, right?
46, it says on the line on the website here.
All right. So Joni was 1 year younger than I am now. And I remember when this came out, I'm like, she felt so old to me at the time, like being like 16. All right, so we have Jamie.
This is probably a bad reproduction of a painting called Big Blue Moon There, or Once in a While in a Big Blue Moon There Comes a Night Like This, which I suspect was the original cover that she intended, but I guess Geffen Records or whoever kind of went, needs your face, Joni, on the cover. So she thankfully had a bunch of photographs from Klein that she took with Klein and herself. So yeah, that was lucky. It was kind of lucky that she had those photographs. But it's a gorgeous painting. It's badly reproduced in black and white in the book. But if anybody can see it online from jonimitchell.com, the colors are amazing, and it's just so domestic, and it's so kind of it has the richness and texture of the album in paint. So yeah, I just want to kind of put that there.
All right. Do we have any other thoughts on the album cover, Chris?
This isn't necessarily on the cover itself, but before we get into the track by track, does anybody have any recollection? Joni and Joni and Larry suffered a loss at some point around this period, where I can't remember if it was before or after the release of this record that she suffered a miscarriage. Does anybody have a chronology of when that happened? I'm just trying to see if there's any.
We talked about it a little in Chalkmark because he had taken the trip to see Peter Gabriel when it happened, right? Wasn't that part of the story? I can't really remember.
I can't either. All right.
I feel like it was before
the release.
I think so.
That's how what Sue says, sort of how I remember it. But certainly Klein's visit to Peter Gabriel was part of that.
So was that after the release of Chalkmark, but before this, or was it before the release of Chalkmark?
I feel like that's what prompted them to start recording Chalkmark, right?
I'll pull up the biography during the break and see if I can find that section.
All right.
Did she have the miscarriage before he went to England? Wasn't she upset that
I get a feeling that it was.
He left and.
But he was also doing other projects for other bands, and it wasn't necessarily that he was going to work with Peter Gabriel or on her record. It might have been that he was going to Bath or to the studio to work on one of the other projects. I don't know.
Was it that damn Sean Colvin again?
Well, in the liner notes for the Geffen box set, she talks about taping the British show The Ghost of Fafner Hall and being a guest appearance on that. And then she talks about recording this record. So it sounds like it was recorded in England, for what it's worth.
I just remember an interview, and I'm totally paraphrasing, so it's probably a little bit off the mark, where she was saying that Klein was going to produce a much younger singer that was trying unsuccessfully to sound like her. So, so I'm like, ooh, rawr. All right. Any other thoughts on the album cover before we move into this wonderful music? All right. So I remember going home, putting the CD into the CD player, and like taking in new Joni Mitchell music for the first time in my life. And the first thing I heard was a cricket. And this song, the first time I heard it, just what a melody. It was just, I loved Chalkmark, but we can kind of admit that maybe it didn't have a lot in the way of melody in some case, most cases. But the song Night Ride Home was just majestic and just a real breath of fresh air. And so romantic. If we all remember, I feel like I was the bad guy in the Wild Things discussion because she had a lot of proclamations of love that I just thought were kind of not that good. But the song Night Ride Home to me is just so truly romantic. Like just sharing a moment with somebody. I'm a person that loves traditions. So every 4th of July, I have to bring my little Night Ride Home CD and listen to the song on the way home from the fireworks. Like I think I've done it every single year since 1991. It's just one of those traditions. So, all right. Do you want to start talking about the song? She started playing this around the time of Chalkmark, right? When she was promoting it. This was a song. Didn't she do something like on Sesame Street with this song a couple years before it was released? Does anyone remember that, or am I totally imagining things?
Well, she said in those liner notes that The Ghost of Fafner Hall was kind of like Sesame Street. And she'd done a guest spot on that in England. So I don't know. I don't think I've heard of her being on Sesame Street.
Okay. All right. So we have David and then Chris. We'll get this rolling.
I just want to say that one thing that when I hear this song and with the first chords and everything, there's this space to it, and space is one of the things I just love about Joni's music, and that spaciousness had been gone pretty much for the past 3 albums. And when people talk about a return to form, that's what sort of takes my breath away in my I don't have much vocabulary for it, but the openness and the crickets it just melts my heart.
I love that her deeper voice was front row and center, like right there, and it was beautifully, I don't know if flawed's the right word, but aged and in just the most gorgeous way. I prefer the Night Ride Home voice to the blue voice any day. All right. Pause.
So yeah, I agree with you on that comment. Yeah, because it was much more mature and the way the album was recorded and the way that her voice sounds, it's just so much fuller. All the studio trickery and everything else that was going on in the previous 2 albums with other producers and multiple studios and stuff, I guess. I'm sorry I missed the other discussion because I actually do like a lot of both of those albums, Dog Eat Dog and Chalkmark. There's songs that just have special meaning for whatever reason to me personally, but the video for Night Ride Home just reminds me of being. We went to Hawaii together with Freda after our first son was born. He was born in 1990, and we went. He was about 18 months old, so it would have been about the summer of 91. we went to Hawaii on vacation, and I rented a car. I had a Mustang convertible. So Mikey, we didn't have a car seat during that time. They weren't, they didn't have car seats at those places. So he rode in the floorboard of the car. But we had this on the tape deck, and heard it many, many times. And it's just such a special song for me, very deep, and the sparseness of it is what really kind of makes it even the more beautiful, and how simplistic the lyrics are, but still manage to dig in so deep. So wonderful stuff.
All right, we have Sue and then Mark.
So I went to a Joni tribute concert in Woodstock one year, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember when it was. But one of the artists who played at that said she was an associate producer on Night Ride Home and was there when Larry and Joni were recording the Crickets. And I think it was just, I think she talked about this too. It was like, she was just hanging out in her house, and all of a sudden she heard the Crickets, and they started recording them, and it, she just liked the beat of, how, the rhythm of how they were, and it fit with the song. And then, I know I'm jumping ahead, but then there's the cat that got a role in Slouching Toward Bethlehem. That's one of her cats is making some kind of moaning sound that worked for her in that. So, with all the different stuff that happened on Dog Eat Dog and Chalk Mark, she was still using a little bit of these weirder sounds to work onto the songs. But
was it Julie Last that you met?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was her. Yeah.
She's the person that mixed this song.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, because that was a really cool tribute. Most of the tributes are, people come up and they play, but this is like, it had a house band, and it was all these people coming up to play, and they did really deep tracks too. So that was a fun night. But yeah, so I just had to bring that up. That's cool. You remembered her name.
All right, we have Mark and then Laura.
Well, from the very first lines of this song, it's obvious that her writing is just in top form. Once in a while in a big blue moon, there comes a night like this, like some surrealist invented this night ride home, 4th of July night ride home. It's beautiful writing. And as far as the Crickets go, is it just my imagination? Or does that cricket have a pitch that goes with the entire melody and chord structure of the rest of the song?
It's just singing the tonic note of C throughout. Yeah, that may have been happenstance, or they may have sampled it and then tuned it to make it in C. That's more likely.
All right, Laura. Oh, Mark, were you done? I didn't want to cut you off. You're done? Okay. Laura.
I just wanted to say that there's a lot of repetition in the song. And, sometimes Joni just goes on and on and on and on. And this song, it seems like it always gets back to the car ride. And it's a relaxed song. There's so much, carefreeness in the song. And really just... It's a dear song for me too, and one of the reasons is because it gets so damn hot in Arkansas around July 4. I usually go up to Rochester, New York then, and on into Canada just to avoid the heat. And this song, it encompasses that feeling for me, getting into the summer relaxation and just the beauty of it all.
It's really cool how throughout Joni Mitchell's career, she takes you on these car rides with you. In her songs, you can really feel like you're on that highway. Like the highway in All I Want feels so different than the highway in Coyote. Then you have your highway in Night Ride Home. And I can feel all three of those different car rides and picture them totally, the scenery's different, the temperature's different, my age is different. And that's just the beautiful thing about Joni's work. Jack and then Robin.
So I think what struck me the most when I first heard this song, to me, it was a great love song, a happy love song that still retained Joni's beauty. Like, she had happy love songs on Wild Things Run Fast that, to me, they were, I don't know, they were like Underneath the Street Lamp. I can't listen to that song. It drives me crazy.
I second that one.
What's that?
I said I second that one.
And when that album came out, I was like, if this is the kind of music Joni's going to make when she's happy and in love, I hope she's sad and miserable. Because but then when this album came out, it's like, cool. She's happy and she's in love and she's creating beautiful music.
I definitely feel like this is one of those, now that's what I'm talking about. Okay, we have Robin and then Chris.
Well, we've performed this song many times, and it's quite accessible for audience members, whether they know Joni or not. And it's probably one of the most popular ones that we do, because it just... It's so evocative, and you can just slip into that space, you know, and it's love. And then, you know, I love the man beside me, so I always think about that too.
Well, and there's nothing off kilter about it. It's just, it could be a John Denver chord progression. It's just, you know, 1-6-2-5 going to the 4 at the chorus, and it's just, you know, it's just very stock and very diatonic and easy to learn and easy to like, and there's just nothing twisted about it. So for me, the stuff that interests me most about her is the angular, you know, discordant things, and the more the better. So this is almost sort of simplistic, but I agree with you on the space, David, about, and this is thanks to Julie Last, because the rest of the album, except for Two Gray Rooms, was all produced by and mixed by Mike Shipley and Dan Marnion that did the last 2 albums. So it's the same guys that did, you know, all that bombastic, heavy reverb, massive drums kind of stuff. So the opening song belies that, because it's very gentle and it's very spacious. We just listened to it an hour ago, so I was reminded of how actually it's not a return to form sonically in most of the songs. It's actually a continuation of Chalkmark sonically, but the writing's better. Anyway, that's a different topic, but I think Night Ride Home as a song, Robin's right, it really connects with people, because everybody has had a memorable drive, you know, through a beautiful place, and a balmy evening, you know, with fireworks. You can picture it.
All right, Chris and then Mark.
Just my first listen to the record, just suddenly this feeling of it was organic again, and I was so glad to hear it. I was so thankful, and I thought, oh, please let this continue all the way through. And for the most part, it truly does for me, that she stays in this realm. But one of the things I realized from the writing, even in the very first song, is, you know, when I was doing a little bit of research, as I was, you know, planning to look into Slouching Toward Bethlehem, there's a word actually that Joan Didion uses in the essays, which is a great Scrabble word if you ever need it. It's Limn, limn, which means to convey the thought of, either through picture or through music. And it's a word that I never really hear applied to Joni Mitchell, but it does applies so well because she does that for us constantly. And here I really felt that, upon learning now this word that I could use, I said, yeah, that's what's here now again. After when I started listening back again to this record before this night, I said, yes, that's what's back. So for me, that's what the return was. She was back to Linding.
All right, Mark. Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted. You're muted.
And I have this huge flashlight here because I can't see otherwise. In the liner notes for the Geffen box set, she writes, prior to taping the show, we recorded Night Ride Home, and we did it quickly without the unnecessary pressure of mixing and remixing. I'm a little confused about this. Maybe Dave can clarify it. Thank God we had that mix, because one night our second engineer accidentally put the machine into record when she was setting up the tones. It was the first track on the master and it got wiped out. It was the only track we had a mix on, so we got lucky.
That happened to Steely Dan too. It's a famous, during the making of Gaucho, their engineer accidentally erased about, 45 seconds of one of the tunes that they'd been working on for 2 years.
Well, she said they had a mix of the song.
Well, you make mixes along the way, usually just to kind of see how it's feeling in the car, and and you don't necessarily intend it to be the final mix, but sometimes you make a mix I just did this today. You make mixes to send to musicians to, that you're going to have overdub, and you want them to kind of get a feel for the track before they come. And in this case, they probably just made one. Hi, Jahida. They probably made a mix to just see how it sounded in the car, and then it ended up having to use it because it got erased the other
Well,
one.
I wonder if that's part of the reason why it sounds different to you.
Well, it's a different mixer. It's Julie Last. And she's the only track that she did on the record. I'm starting to see why.
Is that because she erased it?
Well, yeah, I'm just starting to see why she only got one tune to mix. Yeah, your word gets around town when you erase masters.
Yeah,
sure.
Like
you'll never work in this town again, kind of thing.
So Jahida, we're still on track 1, Night Ride Home, just so you can jump right in. All right. Do we have any? Speaking of the song Night Ride Home, any other thoughts? Did I miss anybody? David.
Yeah, you didn't miss me, but I have to go back because I am a pedant. I want to say you can't have a blue moon on the 4th of July because a blue moon is the second full moon in a calendar month, and that will only happen at the end of the month. It's like the flaps going up while the wheels go down. You really hope that's not happening.
I don't think she's saying that the action is taking place in a blue moon. She's just saying once in a while in a big blue moon. I don't know.
There comes a night like this. So the night's like
comes a night exactly.
All right. Okay. All right.
It comes a night like this.
It's been a long damn blue moon for me. I'll tell you that much. Shit. Okay, Ruben.
I'm just gonna say it sounds like after the 5 years of discussing the synthesizers and the guest stars and all of the things that people picked apart about Chalk Market Dog Eat Dog, this opening track of this feels kind of like all right, everybody shut up. I can still do this if this is really what you want, sort of a thing. And I think it's perfect. It really, because it's like boom, she's back.
Now, is there anyone in this podcast that feels the song Night Ride Home would have been better if Wendy and Lisa were on it? Just kidding. All right.
Now that you think about it.
Did anyone hear the mix with Billy Idol? No? Okay. Any other thoughts on the song Night Ride Home? All right, Jamie.
Just to say that before I knew the album was coming out, I got into late night radio. Late night seemed to be a thing for me, and it was Whispering Bob Harris, who was a huge champion of Joni's on TV in the 70s and 80s. Announced that he was going to play, something from Night Rides Home, and then he played, the Night Ride Home, and I'm like, it's a new Joni Mitchell song. It's amazing. Oh my God. And I think I wet myself in bed. So it was just one of those moments where the heart stops and you want it to be amazing, and it's amazing because suddenly it's this new music, and everything's unfolding.
I remember the first time I heard this album that it ingrained in my life so quickly that it almost felt like there was never a time when this album didn't exist. Like, it's hard to remember a time when there wasn't a Night Ride Home for me. All right, Jack.
I guess the other thing I want to comment on is I think it was hearing that Night Ride Home that gave me the ability to sort of forgive Larry Klein. I had a real hard time, after Jocko, it was just like, I blamed Larry Klein for the direction that Joni's music took. And with this album, I felt, okay, I was cool with it.
Everything was Larry's fault. The perm.
Exactly. There you go.
Iron Eyes Cody. All right. Oh, I'm in a mood tonight, aren't I? Does anyone else want to take over hosting? I'm just kidding.
That dang perm.
I like how you just completely avoided the Doggy Dog podcast, so you didn't have to comment on the perm. All right. Well, I will take one more comment on Night Ride Home before I move on to the next song. Anyone else want to contribute anything? All right. Well, we have a performance of track 2 from Dave and Robin, I believe. Let me pause it while they get set up.
You want some space? There's some space, David.
All right. Let me introduce Dave and Robin, who are going to do a version of Passion Play, When All the Slaves Are Free.
Magdalene is trembling like washing on a line, trembling and gleaming. Never before was a man so kind, never so redeeming. Enter the multitudes in Exxon blue, in radiation rose. Now you tell me who you gonna get to do the dirty work when all the slaves are free? Who you gonna get? I am up a sycamore, looking through the leaves, a sinner of some position. Who in the world can this heart healer be, this magical physician? Enter the multitudes in Exxon blue, in radiation rose. Misery. Now you tell me who you gonna get to do the dirty work when all the slaves are free? Who you gonna get? Enter the multitudes The walking wounded, they come to this diver of the heart of the multitudes. Oh, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Oh, climb down, he says to me, from the middle of unrest. They think his light is squandered, but he sees a stray in the wilderness, and I see how far I've wandered into the multitudes. In Exxon blue and radiation rose, apathy. Now you tell me, who you gonna get to do the crazy work when all the slaves are free? Who you gonna get? Into the multitudes. The walking wounded, they come to this diver of the heart of the multitudes. Oh, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Oh, all around the marketplace, the buzzing of the flies, the buzzing and the stinging. Divinely barren and wickedly wise, the killer nails are ringing into the multitudes. In Exxon blue, in radiation rose, tragedy. Now you tell me, who you gonna get to do the dirty work when all the slaves are free? Who you gonna get? Oh, who you gonna get? Who you gonna get? Who you gonna get?
Wow, beautiful.
Great.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
That was the highlight of my week.
Yeah.
Me too.
Gorgeous.
My goodness.
What a beautiful tuning. I mean, the guitar is just so gorgeous.
Really
Guitar
nice.
part on that.
Man, we're so lucky to have Joni Mitchell, aren't we? Like hearing that song, I'm like, holy shit. Like you just fall in love over and over again.
And so lucky to have Robin and Dave.
Oh, I know.
Thank
The
you.
performances throughout this whole podcast. Just what a
That
treat.
reminds me, I got we have a show coming up on the coast in March, and I got to let your brother know, David, because he probably is close by. So.
All right. Well, welcome, Jim. He's just jumped in. And Jim, we have just been treated to a performance of Passion Play from Dave and Robin, and we're about to discuss the track. So who wants to be the brave one to dive into this one first? All right. I have Chris, and then Jamie, were you fixing your glasses, or are you second? All right. Chris.
Ecstasy, misery, apathy, tragedy. Wow. I mean, the way she constructed those words to fit in this song is extraordinary. She's quoting the Lord's Prayer. This is such a brave piece of writing. And she, I believe, has her own personality and personal story to tell. She is Zacharias. He sees a stray in the wilderness, and I see how far I've wandered. that could so apply to the trip she's just come off of, her last 2 recorded pieces of work, and where she is now. And just this sense of, I need to get back to this other place where I was. In terms of what it means, who you're going to get to do the dirty work when all the slaves are free. I think that she felt a responsibility in some way to, the vanguard of singer-songwriters, and somehow there was a responsibility that she felt she was needing to reclaim here. There's a strong sense of, I think, a personal message she wants to impart through aligning herself with the story of the tax collector. And I don't know exactly what it is, but again, the way she does it, the words she uses, the colors she even brings up, which has been a marked discussion on various lists. Personally, I'll go on record right now to say Exxon Blue and Radiation Rose are just colors. They're a blue and a pink. That's it. That's my personal take. But anyway, I adore this song. I think it's one of the best pieces she wrote, from, lyrically. I remember Danny Capillion opening a show that he was emceeing, and I can't remember if it was the Joni's Jazz in 1999 in Central Park, or if it was the one that he put together, I think, at Town Hall a few years later, that had a lot of different folks coming through, and it was an entire day devoted to Joni Mitchell doing, I forget what they called the series. Anyway, he opened it up talking specifically about this song. So I think it occupies a big piece in his heart as well. But I again, thank you very much, Robin and Dave, for such a beautiful performance. It was sensitive and wonderful, and it really was wonderful for me. Thank you.
Didn't we see a clip of her and Klein playing this in Italy wordlessly? She hadn't written the words yet in 1988. It was they were on tour, and she performed this saying, I haven't written the words yet, but I'm going to perform it anyway. And she la-la-la'd it, but that was 3 years before it came out. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I've seen that one before.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she.
That is so amazing to me that she writes the words last, because as a songwriter myself, if I don't start with the words end up becoming kind of trite because you're having to shoehorn them into pre-existing music. But if you start with a great poem and then set it to music, I think that's a lot easier. But she does it the other way around, which is bizarre for me.
And she makes them rhyme afterwards too.
All right, Laura, your hand's up, and then Jahida, then Mark.
That was incredible, Dave and Robin. That was just, oh my God, it was so moving.
Thank you, Laura.
You really brought the song to life in an incredible way.
We do love that song. It's just so, the story is so vivid, and even my mom liked our recording of that, because she liked the "Who You Gonna Get to Do the Dirty Work" when part, and apparently Joni's mom liked that line too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that
resonates with moms.
Yeah, that's another thing that I was going to say is I'm a mom too, and but it starts with Magdalene's and washing on a line, Magdalene laundries, mm-hmm. And the whole song is talking kind of male and female, the Exxon blue and then the rose, sort of blue and pink, and the multitudes of the men and women, and passion play. That's the, in the Christian church, it's the progression of Jesus to the crucifixion. And, it's like, it's like
a big thing in Catholic church too.
Yeah. really. Well, it's, being in the Bible Belt here in Arkansas, it's pretty big here. I mean, we have the Passion Play in the Ozark Mountains, and we have the Christ of the Ozarks. It looks like a big Gumby, but anyway, just the way that she's talking about men and women here. There's something deep about men and women, and the way that Jesus can reach out, and she, when she says, what is it about the diver? They come to this diver of the heart, somebody who can really reach down and into your heart and understand you. And then toward the end, she talks about the killer nails are ringing, and that's just, to me, that I think that's probably a reference to the crucifixion. And, then she talks about the tragedy and, in a sense, Jesus is the slave of the slaves because, if you follow the Christian story, Jesus is God and makes himself a man, a slave, and so anyway, this song, it's just such a powerful song, and I'll always remember tonight, with you and Dave and Robin playing it and just bringing it to life. It's beautiful.
All right, so we're doing Jahida, then Mark, and then Jamie.
Did I jump Jamie? I thought Jamie was supposed to go first, but okay. Honestly, I was going to this is where my Catholic upbringing comes out, right? What is my reverend at the Methodist Church calls me a recovering Catholic. So, I went through the whole thing too. And I remember the same thing, like truly every year going to see the Passion Play and everything. It was a huge deal, and it's funny when I think about it now, looking back, and I'm like, oh my God, that's like terrifying and traumatizing, for a kid to be like seeing this guy carrying this big cross, being lashed with blood and everything. But it kind of also gives you a same sort of like reverence and also appreciation for the sacrifice, right? And so when I hear this, the same thing, again, took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, this is a total sister song to Magdalene Laundries. I would even imagine that one, like this song kind of, perhaps inspired Magdalene Laundries also, and I think the parallels are kind of obvious. And and here's Joni once again, kind of blatantly talking about religion without being like, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking about religion right now. She does it in such a way, as with everything, where she is so transparent, but yet not hitting you over the head with it. And not to sound like we're so cool, we see the subtext, but like it's something where we're just it's for critical thinkers, just like all of her stuff. And especially for people who, like the majority who have had their lives be kind of ruled in some way by religion, and also be told who they are and where their place is in the world because of religion, like in this song. And the men and the woman and how they interact, and then later on in Magdalene Laundries, which I'm sure we're not going to get into it now, but how the woman is just a tool, and so hence the reason why I'm not Catholic anymore. But I think there is such beauty in the overreaching things about the religious acts, like she says, the ecstasy, right? And like I said, watching the Passion Play and being able to appreciate the sacrifice, it makes Lent a lot more understandable when you're a kid, because you're like, oh my God, I can't have chocolate. Why? And so then you're like, oh, wait, me not having chocolate is nothing compared to what Jesus did for us. Right. And then, I'm kind of rambling, but the idea is that basically Joni has this gift, as we know, but it's this gift of sort of weaving these webs. And you're at the first time you hear it, you're like, oh, that's really cool. And then you hear another thing from her later and you're like, oh man, she just brought it back, and just like when we heard Cactus Tree, and then later on, I checked into the Cactus Tree Motel, right? It's like, it took so long in between there, but she found the way to bring it full circle. And so that's what I wanted to say about this, was just this song. And also, I have a question for Dave and Robin, because, obviously, have you guys recorded this, first of all? I have two questions. Have you recorded this?
Yeah, it's on our Safaris album.
Why can't I remember that? Maybe it's because
you have it in your house.
I was just going to say, I can't remember, probably because, but also because that chord, when those chords, when she goes into the chorus, I don't know what it is. There are songs in this world that certain chords just elicit this feeling, it like they hit you in different ways. And it's a chord, right? Like, these are things that, as a music major, I've heard all of the chords you could possibly hear, but for some reason, the way that she does it, and it instantly just makes me feel this certain way. And I guess that's, for her, it's right, it's this chord of inquiry, but for me, it's so relaxing and it's so soothing, and it just makes me feel like I am somehow home.
Well, remember that the tunings grew out of her looking for chords.
Well, I'm glad she was searching.
So she didn't, instead of like studying the guitar more of how to play those chords, she just would stay with the shapes she liked and then change the tuning till it made chords that she liked, which is really very strange, but it worked for her until she toured. But yeah, so she would totally agree with what you said, that chords are feelings, and if you get the chords expressing or implying certain feelings, you know what the song's going to be about, and that gives you your subject. So in her case, the chords are intimately tied to the narrative and the emotion of the song, and I love that about her because she's so tuned to that.
I would say a lot of the chords that make me feel that way come from her. Also, the other band, I should say, that make me feel that way are or bands, I should say, are Pink Floyd. Their chords seem to, I don't know, get me as well. And Steely Dan, which I know that's a hot take because not a lot of you love Steely Dan on the Joni list, but I'm sorry, I love them. So sometimes their chords just get me. And of course Prince, but that comes without saying, and everything. So and I'm not going to overdo this Prince because Jeremy and I already talk about Prince. So but yeah, there are certain people who just do those kinds of things. And yeah, I guess, that's where the musician in me really lies, is like those chords are feelings, and they have the capability to take me places and bring memories that I didn't even know were there.
Yeah, I get it.
I do have to mention that Jahida did make a cameo on the Prince Phonogenics series, so we have a crossover in the house.
Unfortunately, they're on Mondays, and I can't do Mondays because I have roller derby practice. So.
Well, we can do one on a Tuesday sometime. All right, so we have Mark, then Jamie, then Sue, then Paz, then Jack. That's the lineup. Mark, take it away.
Well, first of all, I totally agree with Jahida about that chord. There is something about it that makes me, I mean, I was closing my eyes practically when Dave and Robin were performing it, and the guitar is gorgeous. It's beautiful. But I just wanted to say that the poetry, I mean, the lyrics for this are as close as you can get, I think, to poetry. They're absolutely wonderful. Magdalene is trembling like a washing on a line, and divinely barren and wickedly wise, the killer nails are ringing. It's incredible. I mean, and I think it's interesting that she gave it the subtitle Passion Play, or is Passion Play is the name of the song, and then When All the Slaves Are Free is the subtitle, I guess. I had history of the theater when I was in college, and Passion Plays have been going on in Europe for centuries. But one thing I kind of conjectured about Exxon Blue and Radiation Rose was stage lighting. I don't know. We learned that the most common stage lighting was bastard amber and steel blue. So Exxon Blue, steel blue, I don't know. Radiation Rose could be stage lighting or costumes. I don't know. To me, the whole thing kind of evokes a stage setting. But she did say in these notes that it was her story, the Easter story, she said, and it sort of morphs into this ecological modern day thing with Exxon Blue and Radiation Rose. And I also wanted to read something here very briefly. I always liked the Rabbi Jesus, his spunk and his rebellious spirit. My father told me your Jesus is awfully human. He said, well, that goes into something else, but anyway, I don't know. Do the Passion Plays just go through the crucifixion, or do they actually portray the resurrection as well? Because she doesn't say anything about the resurrection in this song. She goes up to the crucifixion, but that's it. So she's kind of leaving out this huge thing in
Just
Christianity.
Yeah,
Excuse
because
me?
the Stations of the Cross go for just up to the death on the cross.
Okay.
For Good Friday. Usually it happens on Good Friday.
But the movies go all the way.
Greatest story ever told, yeah.
Well, I probably should shut up because I could go on and on about this song forever. I love it, and there's just so much in it. It's a wonderful song, and Dave and Robin did such a beautiful job with it.
Yeah. All right, Jamie, you're next.
Dave and Robin certainly did a beautiful, beautiful job. I was looking at your playing, Dave, and just amazed by the tone and I'm continually surprised at the chords and the juxtaposition of chords that she has and how they grab attention. But what I wanted to say about this song was whenever somebody asks me to do something I do not want to do, it always, who you gonna get? You know? Because I don't want to do your dishes. I don't want to do your da-da-da-da. Who you gonna get to do the dirty work? You know, that's me. I remember auditioning for the Passion Play for Coventry, and Coventry has this beautiful new cathedral, and I remember going up to Coventry, and they were sort of they wanted a kind of like Middle Eastern feel for their Jesus, So here I was surrounded by all these Pakistani actors with long hair, all auditioning for Jesus. And it was just so interesting just to be kind of like, be surrounded by these like other brown Gizai, and just having this song in my head going, I need to know the story of this, how this song fits into the passion play that we're going to be doing right now. And so when the liner notes came out, and I'm so glad you mentioned the line you read from the liner notes, Mark. I'm still unclear, because maybe of my own Muslim upbringing, but it always amazes me how she is able to weave these such intricate words and ideas into the form that she uses, the form of the song that she uses. I'm always amazed, and this is probably one of the best of them in terms of taking ideas and parqueting them into the song effortlessly. So I'm just amazed at the magnificence of it.
That's something else I wanted to say. She also talks about how she does the melody first and how she fits the words into the song. And she says the music kind of dictates where the climax in the words occurs or where this goes. And I don't know how she does it, but she's a genius at doing it, at songwriting, at marrying words and music. There's hardly anybody that can touch her.
And she did say that it's melody first, because otherwise all the writing would be de-dum, 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 like Shakespeare, like, iambic.
Oh yeah, iambic pentameter. She did mention that. And the line "enter the multitudes," that's a stage direction. Enter the multitude. So I don't know. She's kind of telling the story, but she's also kind of placing it on a stage, and it's a performance in a way.
All right, we have Sue next.
Well, I'm going to take off where Jamie started there on the way she constructs the song, because I've been obsessed with the song Marcy for a while. And as I was listening to, Passion Play and listening to the lyrics, that whole thing, ecstasy, apathy, the tragedy. And then I think of the red and green that she has through that whole song. That's kind of a signpost for each stanza, And she does that in a lot of songs. I mean, it's just so incredibly. I mean, those are the type of songs that I think balance on a pin. Like the composition is so perfect that it's just an incredible song. And Passion Plays like that, and the way I agree that the way the tuning sounded and the way Dave played that, the harmonics and all that were just so incredibly gorgeous. It's when I think of those chords that like just tear your heart out, I think of the word longing. For some reason those chords, and going back to all her great songs from the 70s too, from For the Roses and all that, you hit that chord and you just feel like everything is opening up, and I just wanted to mention too, did anybody hear the new song, well, the new to us song Jesus on the Second Archives? I mean, she's been thinking about Jesus for quite a while. And that was an interesting song. You know what? The thing that really killed me about that song, it freaking gets stuck in your head. Like the melody just gets stuck in your head. Because I listened to it many, many times. Actually, Les wanted me to figure out the lyrics because some of them you can't really hear. he does that to me a lot. He'll send me a song. Sue, can you hear what the lyrics are? I go, well, how can I hear them any more than you can, you know? But I try to figure it out for him, you know. But but you know, I mean, there are a lot of songs that have. She called herself at one point a Christian Buddhist or something like that. But you know, the whole salvation type of thing that happens when you're thinking about, you know, the difference between what Jesus, you know, what the words of Jesus meant and what the religion around it did, you know, like this whole idea that everybody is worth it, you know. It's like climb down, he said to him from the middle of unrest. They think his light is squandered. It's like he's no different from you, you know. He's got light inside of him too, you know. And I think that there's a lot of themes like that Joni has in her music. So.
And when everybody in the world matters, when every single person is important,
mm-hmm.
who are you going to get to do the dirty work?
Exactly.
Because all the slaves will be free.
Right.
Great awareness.
All right, so we have Paz, then Jack, then Chris, and then Dave.
So yeah, Sue, I agree with a lot of what you said, especially about the chords and the harmonics and the way that Dave articulates them on the way that they do the song really accentuates that. For me, I love this song so much. I love trying to play. It's really a difficult song for me to play and sing at the same time, especially on the electric guitar. I just got a new tuner, and I'm gonna try to start doing them on the acoustic guitar, just to have that good old sound hole on your knee sort of thing. But I was going to remark that this song, you know, evokes a lot of darkness for me in the lyric, but the melody and the way that those chords sound evoke some kind of brightness and some kind of hope. And I don't know, I end up getting some sort of positivity out of it, even though to me it's pretty dark imagery all the way through it.
All right, Jack.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I've always liked about Joni was how willing she is to look at the flaws in herself. You know, whether it's walking away from the guy and for free or talking about her haggard face. But the line here where she calls herself a sinner of some position, I think that's such an elegant way of putting that. I love it. That's such a great line to me to, you know, because we all know we've got our flaws and what have you, but she's like saying, I'm not just any old sinner, I'm a sinner of some position. And yet he's still interested in me, or, you know, cares about me, kind of thing. I that line's always gotten to me. And Dave and Robin, whew, I'm going to probably rewind this and watch it a dozen times because that was absolutely stunning.
Well, thank you, Jack. It's on our Safari's CD also,
Yeah,
a live,
I know,
live
but
version.
Being able to see you guys actually perform it.
All right.
I listened to your CD quite a bit, so
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Chris, and then Dave.
I won't take very long because I already sort of gave my spiel on this song, but I just wanted to point out before it goes away that the line, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why I brought up the question earlier as to if anybody knew the chronology of her miscarriage. Divinely barren and wickedly wise, the killer nails are ringing. I think that sort of reaching to why you lose a child can be really, really a very big, powerful moment for a person, for a woman, for a couple. So I think that line has sort of been one that I associate personally to her, and I just wanted to bring that up.
All right, Dave.
I was just thought I'd amplify a little bit more about the guitar part on that. it's in a what we call a major add 9 tuning, and it's the same tuning she used on Night Ride Home and Yvette in English and this song, different capo positions, but it's the same tuning. And so it was a very versatile tuning, and a little bit more so than just a straight open major chord, because you always have this pretty tension from the ninth being included in the 1, 4, and 5 chords. And the other thing is that I play this. I have a baritone guitar that I just played that is set up for that tuning. It's always in that tuning. And for years, I tried playing it on a standard guitar, and you could just never get it in tune because the strings are too slack. And the minute that chord on the in X on Blue phrase where she's barring across the second fret, it just was horribly sharp. And for years, I'm thinking, how can I make this sound right where it's in tune? And so step one was getting a baritone guitar where the scale length is longer, and I chose each string gauge to be as close as possible to the pitch that it's going to be tuned to the point where the second string is a wound string. So, almost every guitar player uses the top 2 strings unwound, but when you're doing these kinds of tunings where she's dropping her second string down to a G, like on Night Ride Home, why not use a G string? And so that's what I do. I use a G string on the second string because it's tuned to a G. And that's how you get it in tune. And following the principle that no string gets altered more than a whole step away from its intended pitch, then that's kind of was a discovery for me to finally be able to play in tune. Some of her tunings are not drop tunings. The bottom strings are dropped way down, like Coyote, for example, or Just Like This Train, but the upper strings are raised. So it's not like you just get a big old guitar and tune it down, because sometimes you need to actually go above standard pitch. And that means you have to be using custom string gauges where you've got thin strings on the top, huge strings on the bottom. And so that's been a journey to be able to figure out how to play a tune like that in tune. So part of why the chords are pretty is because they're in tune. But I should say it's also an expensive journey.
I feel like the studio recording of this song kind of sets the template for what Joni would do a lot in the 90s. If you look back at the 70s, we had Larry Carlton doing a lot of electric guitar over her parts. I feel like this is a song where she kind of introduces the wash of synthesizers over the guitar. Because this is something that you'd hear, a lot on this album, then in Turbulent Indigo, even through Taming the Tiger.
Yeah, and people were saying earlier that we're back to organic, but this album is full of synthesizer, and it's got Mike Landau doing that, incredibly long delayed chorus kind of thing, hanging over, not so much on that song, but on many of the others. So it's really a continuation of Chalkmark sonically, except for the fact that that you can hear some acoustic guitar. Mm-hmm. But it's got the same drummer, it's got the same bass player, it's got the same synths, it's got the same mixer, got 2 guys mixing it. And so I think it's less of a radical departure or return to form than other people were claiming it to be. I like it better. I think the songs are more interesting. Many of them, she says what she has to say in the first 2 or 3 minutes, and then she vamps for 3 or 4 more minutes. So there are 7.5 minute long songs on this album that should have been 4.5. So I think it's kind of loose that way. She sort of likes the sound of stuff, so she just kind of lets it go and fills up the album. In terms of song craft, she's a million miles away from Hissing of Summer Lawns, where there isn't a wasted note. On this album, I think there's quite a bit of rambling, but anyway, that's another topic. I did want to just bring up about the guitar stuff because it is interesting, and with one note different, you have the Hejira and My Secret Place tuning. So this was a tuning that she did a lot with, and yeah.
And this might be a controversial statement, but I feel like Passion Play sonically as a studio recording has a lot more in common with Cool Water than anything from the 70s.
That's a great point. Yeah. Also, well, just to finish, this was the first album she made in her home studio.
Okay.
All her career, she'd gone to A&M, and this is she and Larry put a studio together at her house called the Kiva, and they hired Dan Marnian to come and engineer. But so when Alex Acuna came to do overdubs, it was at her house, and so it was a relaxed environment to record in, and they got to buy the microphones for her that she liked the best, and really kind of dial it in how she liked it.
I feel like you can hear that comfort in the recordings for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've always kind of felt that on this record, the synthesizers they weren't the dominant sound. They were more for emphasis, or as Jeremy said, they were like a wash or coloring. And so in that way, I've always felt this and Turbulent Indigo were both very different from the albums that preceded it.
All right, I want to give about 7 more minutes to this song. We have Jahida and then Jim on deck.
I won't be too long. I just wanted to say that I think that Joni needs to hire Dave to think about
I vote that too.
Those strings, because I was just saying to Les while he was talking, I was like, see, this is what kills me about Dave. He thinks so deeply about it, and yet it works the best. And I'm just like, I'm so impressed. So I think Joni needs to hear you talk about this, and then she can buy all your strings for you.
No, she would say, now you tell me.
Right. But also, I just wanted to say the funny thing is too, well, funny, not funny, haha. But that whole line, when all the slaves are free, and it's the idea that who are you going to get to do the dirty work when all the slaves are free? Well, if we're talking politically, okay, which has Joni ever done that before? I'm not sure, but yeah, no, she, I feel like even the stuff that she's talking about then is still, of course, so relevant today, right? The working class are the slaves in essence, and now we have these freaking billionaires who are dependent on us. And it's like, well, who are you gonna get to do your dirty work when all the slaves are free? Not that that's obviously going to happen, because they won't let it, but it's the idea that, it is certainly just, it's another example of Joni being so prescient, just, and also just being able to touch on those cyclical historical things, like, well, hey, if this happened during Jesus's time, it's still happening now, right? On just a different way. So, I just wanted to kind of bring that up about, even though it's obviously very political, or very religious, she's always touching on the political in some way as well.
All right, Jim.
I really wanted to talk about Cherokee Louise, so I stuck up my hand for that. But okay. It's great to see everybody participating on Night Ride Home. Just one quick comment on this song is that, two things. I think Joni has been using the harmonics ever since she worked with Jocko. There's a lot of harmonics on that song, and maybe we didn't hear so much of that before. And the other thing is, the nice thing about this album is that it's sort of a return to form, but it's also a good blending of the synthesizer washes that were way too forward in the mix before, and now they're just a bed for the rest of it. It's like a Joni Mitchell album that has a little bit of synthesizer wash in the back, and I think she found a good balance here. So I'm gonna mute while I wait for you to introduce Cherokee Louise.
All right, Jim, you're first on deck. That's the first pre-order of the podcast. I love it. All right, let's do a couple more, and then we'll move on to Cherokee Louise. Jack, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the political comments. They mentioned the divinely barren and wickedly wise. To me, that's very the political side more than anything else. That these people who are in power, she kind of did it on tax-free too, going after the, like the pseudo-Christians or whatever you want to call them. Divinely barren, meaning there's not a holy cell in their bodies, even though they're acting like there is. And then wickedly wise, you've got all these intelligent people running the world, but they're wicked. And so to me, that's definitely political.
And Jahida, maybe you didn't remember Joni doing politics because you haven't been with us since Wild Things Run Fast. Okay, so Jim, did you have your hand? Was your hand back up? Did you have another thing to say?
No, I'm still waiting for Cherokee Louise.
That's
I just don't want to be forgotten.
That's a pre-order.
The pre-order.
Okay. We're doing good. We're 2 hours in. We're 2 songs. Any other thoughts on Passion Play? We can all agree that this is one of her best of the 90s, if not of her entire repertoire. All right, so let's pause.
One more thing.
Ruben, sorry.
I forgot to say this has more of her wacky, very moving background vocals. The Who You Gonna Get's remind me of the Lele Leilas from Song to Sharon. So I love those.
Hey Ruben, I love that you always comment on the background vocals because that's what I sing when I'm in the car. All right, pause. Do you want to pause and do a little sound check, or do you want to just go right into it?
Okay, let's do it real quick.
All right, I'd like to present to you our friend Paz here from the Paz Music Room doing a rendition of Cherokee Louise.
Thank you, Jeremy. Cherokee Louise is hiding in this tunnel in the Broadway bridge. We're crawling on our knees. We got flashlights and batteries. We got cold cuts from the fridge. Last year around this time we used to climb up in the branches just to sway there in some breeze. Now the cops on the street, they want poor Cherokee Louise. People like to talk, tongues are wagging over fences, wagging over phones. All the doors are locked, God, she can't even come to our house. But I know where she'll go, to the place where you can stand, press your hands like it was bubble bath in the dust pile high as me, down under the street. My friend, poor Cherokee Louise. Ever since we turned 13, it's like a minefield walking through the door. Going out you get the 3rd degree, and coming in you get the 3rd World War.
Tuesday after school we put our pennies on the rails, and when the train went by, going, look, no heads or tails, lucky prize. She runs home to her foster dad. He opens up her breeches and he yanks her to her knees. Oh, please be there, please, my friend, poor Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise is hiding in this tunnel in the Broadway Bridge. All the lime trees, I got Archie and Silver Screen, and I know where she is, at the place where you can stand and brush your hands, give us bubble bath in dust pile high as me, down under the street, my friend, poor Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise. Cherokee Louise.
Yeah, pause.
Okay.
Cool.
Yes, 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 yes.
That's another one in that tuning.
Yeah.
I love that tuning. It was weird in this space though. My sound was all off here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so before we go into this song, I will say this is probably one of my favorite Joni Mitchell songs of all time. And it just shows, like, no matter what age you are in your journey of life, childhood traumas just never leave you. And, you know, as the writer, you can tell Joni really felt this. And as a listener, it's even hard to listen to now in some ways. The keyboard wash is back. Ruben, our background vocals are in full effect on this one. I was singing them along with Paz.
Along with Mitch. This, this song evokes memories for me that are pretty disturbing. There was a young girl. She was older than me at the time. She was in her mid-teens, but she lived in the haunted house around the corner, around the backside of the block that I lived in, and she was a special friend. I mean, she looked after me, and she was always a positive influence. But I know that she had a very dark situation in her home life with her parents. And while I was at the time only about 8 or 9 years old, those memories are still there. And I just went back to Detroit not too long ago to visit my sister before she died, and those images came up again. And this song was all, well, it's a beautiful song. I mean, the imagery and stuff that it evokes is just such tragic things that I know that go on every day in life, but the way that, of course, Joni can put them across, that makes it so accessible for all of us.
What makes this album so beloved to me is I feel like some things that Joni tried to do with not as much success in the 80s as she had done in the past. For example, like the romance of Solid Love or Under the Street Lamp, but I felt that in Night Ride Home. Then I feel like in a lot of her other songs in the 80s, she's trying to evoke a rage and an injustice. But the rage and injustice of this song are just so genuine and so gut wrenching in a way that none of that 80s stuff was for me. I mean, I just think she's really just hitting the nail on the head in a lot of things in a way that she hadn't in her recorded work for a long time for me as a listener. All right. Anyone want to talk about our friend Cherokee Louise?
Oh, yeah.
All right, take it. Oh, yeah, you're first. Jim, you get the spotlight for a second.
Okay. I have to say, okay, when I was watching a movie called Forrest Gump, and we find out what his young friend's problem is with her parents. Forrest Gump says, sometimes there aren't enough rocks. And I thought of Cherokee Louise when I saw that scene. I think this is one of Joni's great portrait songs. You know, we've got Nathan Lafreniere, and we've got Coyote and Marcy. We've got Carrie, and then I think Carrie Radice appears in California, if I'm correct there, and My Old Man and Cherokee Louise. That's all I have.
This is kind of off topic, but I can only think of one other character sketch song that just tears me up as much as this one. It's by a different artist, but it's Red Dirt Girl by Emmylou Harris.
That is a great song.
Like that song has the impact of this one to me in a different way. Oh,
I think this is her saddest song, you know it. And the funny thing is that Sting wrote 2 albums, one for each of his parents when they passed. And Joni's saddest song is about this school chum. I think she was really wise to call her Cherokee Louise because Mary Waddington just doesn't have the same ring.
You know, in my day-to-day job, I deal with a lot of sex workers and people that suffered trauma and abuse, and I deal with them in their adult life. And behind every person I deal with as an adult, there was a childhood person just running away to a bridge, just skipping rocks, trying to survive it. So I might have to take a coffee break in a minute.
Baby Lang also did a song called Nowhere to Stand. That is a very powerful statement about child abuse.
All right, we have Sue and Jamie.
Yeah, this is a hard song. I mean, it's a beautiful song, but sometimes I can't listen to it, you know, and I guess I feel bad about that, but it's beautiful. And it was really weird. I was driving the other day, and for some reason, this song "Luca" came into my mind. Do you remember that song?
I loved that song.
Vega? That's another hard song.
Oh my God, Sue.
Yeah.
Suzanne Vega is my favorite.
I know, she's great. Yeah. So, and it's so interesting. Number one was the song I did last time, and this song is also in that type of shuffle type of strum that she has that's really hard to play, and the combination of trying to figure out how to play it and sing it. So I give Paz a lot of credit for doing this song. It's a rough one.
It felt rough to me. I think I normally play that a lot better, but it was weird because it's been a while since I've been in that space, so I didn't really have the time to fine tune everything today. So I say I'm really leaning on towards trying to play more acoustic guitar, and got a baritone guitar. That's something I could go get.
Right.
All right, and I'd like to thank everyone for using your reactions hand because it makes it easier for me to keep track of everybody. Because whoever raises their hand, it puts you in the upper left in order of raised hands. So we have Jamie, then Chris, then Jack.
Joni is a genius in taking care of her audience, and in this song, I think Chris and I discussed it on Facebook of all places, how when she drops the bomb about the stepdad and the abuse, she cuts, the lyrics end and Wayne Shorter starts, and he's like the soothing balm that kind of allows us, the audience, to take that part of the story in. And it's just so beautiful what he plays, and we're still devastated by this incident. Well, it's not an incident with her. I suspect it's ongoing. It's like he tells us the next bit of story. Like, she gets to run away. She gets to run away. She's okay, you know. And then then we hear the final verse where why she's in the bridge, under the bridge, and why she's there, and Joni's helping her, and you know, hopefully she'll escape, and all that kind of stuff. It's just so, I don't know, compact and tidy and beautiful. And I'm out. That's me.
All right, Chris.
Well, hi. Is Louise the same Louise who is with Gail? So she survives to adolescence and joyfulness and hanging out in jukeboxes and dancing and having fun? Because I want to believe that. Does anybody know?
In an interview, she called her Cree Mary. So I don't think her actual name was Louise.
But
no, her actual name was Mary Waddington.
Right.
And after high school, she was one of the people that took the wrong turn. And you remember Joni was saying, yeah, they were, you know, I was hanging with the wild kids in high school. And for a while, you know, it was fun to just sit around the campfire and hang out with the wild bunch. But then after high school, they turned to crime and prostitution. And Mary was one of those.
Well, whether or not Mary's name is Louise or Louise's name is Mary, are they the same person? I guess. I mean, it sounds like she really didn't survive, but I wanted to believe that she survived. But now what you've just told me about what happened to Mary makes me think that, you know, there was real trauma that, you know, that existed to completely hurt her later on, even in life. Anyway, other than that, the song, the imagery it draws, I think that when she talks about the dust piled as high as bubble bath, it reminds me of a specific time of year when the cottonwood trees blow this stuff around and it gathers in every crevice. And so I could imagine this space, if this space exists under the bridge, being just some place where kids would have found that had a magic to it, and it was their special place. So there's just a beautiful childhood image painted here. The shuffle rhythm is like skipping. There's a juxtaposition that she draws between this really intense, heavy lyric laced with racism, you know, because she brings in, you know, the fact that there's, you know, this girl might be indigenous, you know, and there's all of that subtext coming into this and laying against and contrasting with this skipping rhythm. I think when she rebuilt this song for Travelogue, she had a really tough choice to make, whether or not to sort of take this to a more somber place. Maybe she didn't feel that the juxtaposition was apparent enough to listeners to really get the gravity of the song. But overall, I think somehow the Travelogue version, I think supports the story a little bit more than this particular arrangement. That's just my take on this song. But I think it's a fine song, and I agree. I think it's one of the better portrait songs that she's done. It's easily as good as Scarlet, I think.
All right, Jack.
Yeah, I just kind of want to touch on the position as well. When you first start listening to the lyrics, it sounds like it's just these two girls, playing in the dirt and putting pennies on the track. And, ever since they turned 13, what kid hasn't had that, as a teenager, being, grilled every time you leave or when you come in the house. So even that seems normal. And then all of a sudden you get to, this gut-wrenching realization that this is more than just a typical teenager-parent relationship. And, hiding under the bridge isn't just a game. It's a way of survival. It really very powerful, the way she contrasts the innocent stuff of, the pennies on the rail and playing in the dirt with the reality of what's going on with this poor girl. Very powerful.
All right, Mark.
Well, in the Wells Fargo concert, she introduces this song and she gives an explanation about the Broadway Bridge and how the kids used to, there was a way to crawl across it. It sounds like through the steel or ironwork itself. And that was where Cherokee Louise went. And I always kind of thought that Dust Piled High as Me was like powder bubble bath. I don't know if anybody remembers that or not. As far as ever since we turned 13, the parents are trying to protect these girls. They've reached the age where they're starting to have their sexual changes in their body, hormonal, whatever you want to call it. And I think there's one line in there that I just love. Ever since we turned 13, it's like a minefield walking through the door. Going out, you get the third degree, and coming in, you get the third World War. Yeah.
So bratty. So bratty.
I guess there's not much else that I wanted to say about it, except I love the song. I like the guitar in this song. There's something about it. I don't know if it's irony or what, but it's like almost like skipping and jumping. We would jump and run like fools, when they put the pennies on the rails. So it's kind of like just harking back to childhood or something and childhood games, but at the same time, it's telling this dark story. And I finally figured out how to put the hand up in the left-hand corner. All this time I'm going, how the hell do you do this? And I'm going, reactions? Oh, there it is. Anyway.
It's definitely making my job much easier. So
well, I will remember it, Jeremy.
I do want to give a shout out to the beautiful harmonies from Karen Paris on this song, who also, I'm a liner notes geek. She's also does the harmony on another really sad song from Natalie Merchant's Ophelia album called Frozen Charlotte. I'm a huge Natalie Merchant fan, and I knew that I would recognize that name from the Natalie universe, so I just looked it up.
The Innocence Mission. She was, the Innocence Mission.
Yeah. I just got sucked into the Innocence Mission wiki page. I'm like, let me get back to the podcast and falling down a hole. All right. Any other thoughts? And Jack, is your hand up from before? Okay. Any other thoughts on Cherokee Louise? Dave.
Just following on what Mark was saying, that there's a skip to the shuffle rhythm, but also the way that Joni sings, that they're very clipped, short notes. Last year, about this time, we used to climb, and it's very childish. No, sort of lyrical held notes. has assumed the character of the 13-year-old in the way she's phrasing. It's very subtle, but it totally works. And it's classic Joni, where she's role playing with her voice.
I never noticed that, but that's very spot on.
Yeah. Jim, is your hand up?
I read that "Send in the Clowns" was written deliberately with very short phrases and short words because the person that Sondheim was writing for didn't have good breath control.
Oh.
So you can write a song that is easy to sing for a lesser singer. In this case, I think she wrote it to just sound like how kids speak. Or
That was Glennis Johns, by the way, in A Little Night Music.
What was that?
That was Glennis Johns,
Uh-huh.
A Little Night Music.
Then why did Judy Collins have such a great hit with it?
Let's not even talk about the Grace Jones version, right? All right, Jim, is your hand up from before, or is it a new one?
No, it's a new one. I just wanted to say, since Bob's not here, that there have been 29 covers of this song. Let's see. My second favorite is Judith Owen, where she, her CD is called Rediscovered. And we talk about this kind of often because it's pretty cool. And at first, you don't recognize the song, and then because the music is very different, and then you figure out that the new setting completely complements the song, or it takes it in a completely new direction. And appropriately, this one's very somber. And then my favorite one is Robin and the Mutts.
Cool. And Jim, just so you know, Bob did make a cameo at the beginning, and he went through all the songs with the covers, just so it was.
I'm shamed.
Bob Jr.
Yeah, Bob.
Thank you for that, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have Rumen and then dinner time. Listening.
I just was going to say, I think, Chris, you mentioned a minute ago about the writing on this, and I write a lot in my professional life and in my personal life, and I've always written a lot of stuff, short stories and poetry and marketing copy and all this stuff. And I'm a good writer. But when you look at, you step back from Joni, she's so good at it that you sort of forget after a while, and then you take a step back and look at a song like this, you go, I quit. It's so well crafted and well put together, and she just puts us all to shame, me anyway.
Yeah, after this podcast, I take back what I said. Don't go listen to my music. Anyone that's watching, don't bother. Go to Joni Mitchell. Okay.
Don't listen to the Grace Jones version of
Send in the Clowns. Oh.
And I like Grace Jones, but don't listen to that one.
That's the opening track of the first Grace. So anyone that's exploring the catalogs of Grace Jones starts with her version of Send in the Clowns. All right. Pause.
I'm having trouble imagining that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim, for the shout out to Judith. I mean, I was so thrilled when she did that, and Ladies Man at the Pause Fest. She just killed it. Yeah, and she's doing more. I mean, she's obsessed now with the Joni. But I was going to mention that I had a memory that just came back to when I thought about the lyrics of this song. So when the kids were little, I took them up. We live about 4 blocks from the train, and so we went up and put pennies on the rails, and came back a couple days later and picked them up, and of course they're completely flattened, and I still have a couple of those in my jewelry treasure box. Good image.
All right, Jahida.
I was gonna correct you, Paz. At Paz Fest, Judith sang Ladies Man and Man to Man.
Right. But then she put Cherokee Louise on the album. Thank you. And I'm not even drinking tonight.
And also I will say that is something that the coins, the pennies on the track, we live sometimes, like, if you are out on the porch we're very close to train tracks where we are as well. And so you hear it a lot. And one of the things that Les did also as a kid was do the same thing, putting the pennies on the train tracks. But then I love, and of course, it's just so every time any of his grandkids come, that's what they go and do. And I just think it's just absolutely adorable. And the weird thing is that, I grew up next to New York City, right? So there's trains everywhere, but we didn't get near the trains. So I never did that at all. I didn't even know that was a thing until I moved here, and I was already in my late 30s. So I think it's a really cool, the closest I think I ever got was going to some aquarium and doing the penny thing where you can do that. But I just, that you just remind me of that, how we have a couple of those here and it's just so neat looking, you're just like, God, it's not even recognizable anymore. But they would put the coins down and then they would go away and then they'd go back later and see which ones, they can find. So it's kind of neat.
Man, I would love to just chill with you all on the side of some train tracks with some beers and some guitars, put some pennies on the rails. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That's a good idea.
Let's just chill by some train tracks. David, your hand's up.
Yeah, now I'm confessing to my wayward youth where there was a trolley sort of streetcar that went by and we moved from pennies to gravel to boulders on the rail to see just what would happen when the streetcar ran into this rock. Boom. There you go.
How do I do? Oh.
All right, Robin.
Well, I just wanted to mention about the, pressing your hands and like it's bubble bath. And I know exactly what that is. And I think it is under bridges, but it's where the soil or dirt is very fine. Has anybody ever experienced that?
Absolutely.
It might be actually pulverized rubber particles from tires.
Well, I think it's more like, dust and dirt, but very fine. So
It's
that
almost-
image was very clear.
Almost like spongy in a way sometimes, right?
Spongy?
'Cause I remember
like powder snow.
Yeah,
You
very,
can-
very fine,
Okay.
powdery. Yeah.
Yeah, the sediment on the bottom of a river is very much like that. It's very powdered. It's almost like talc.
Okay.
Actually, it reminds me of I always thought of it when you're in a hot tub and how it gets kind of, because it reacts with the oils in your skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get that foamy kind of bubbly thing that happens and you gotta I always thought it was that, but I mean, then again, like I said, I grew up next to New York City, so I had the Hudson River, not any actual natural ponds or anything.
All right. Do we have any parting thoughts on our friend Cherokee Louise before we move on to Angry Housekeeper? All right. This has been a wonderful discussion of a wonderful song. All right. So Joni Mitchell had to fire somebody and they were pissed, right? Even though Elvis gave him cars. This was Bob's least favorite song on the album, correct? Giving a shout out to Bob. David, take it away.
All right. It's one of my least favorite. She should never, ever, ever have recorded this, and somebody should have stopped her from recording this, because to complain about your ungrateful servants, it just never goes over well. It's just wrong. From the moment she calls them, Elvis gave them cars. It's like, Joan, stop it. Just stop it,
Who's going to do the dirty work? Who's going to do the dirty work when they take you to court?
Yeah, not okay.
Mark.
Well, I actually like this song. I think the lyrics are, some of them are very clever. You'd eat your young alive for a jaguar in the tribe, you know. I don't know. That just, there are people I think that are like that. Now, when I first heard it, I had no idea it was about her housekeeper, you know. And I think she said at one point that she kicked her in the shins after she painted her piano brown. But this housekeeper painted her piano brown, and she got so mad that she kicked her in the shins. I don't know. I just saw it as a comment on greed more than anything, and didn't really think too much about servants or housekeepers or anything like that.
Can you tell the backstory on what she filed suit or something?
I really don't know exactly what that is.
Sue?
No.
Do you know, Sue?
Well, I think that the housekeeper sued her.
Right.
Yeah, so
For kicking her. Or...
yeah, there was some abuse that went on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But wasn't there a money thing where not only did she paint the piano, but she was saying that she was going back to Guatemala, but in fact was sunning herself in Florida. So it's kind of a trust thing, I think. That's what I'm getting, but I need to read up on it a bit.
Well, the song certainly talks about some kind of a lawsuit. I mean, counting woolly little lawyers and grinding their teeth, you know. Courts are like game shows. Take what's behind the curtain, the jury cries. So she's talking about some kind of a lawsuit there, and somebody, apparently her housekeeper, I don't know, sued her for what she felt were false pretenses, I guess.
I did like this song too, because, you know, I was a fan of Dog Eat Dog and Chalkmark, and to me, this is just another descendant of, you know, tax-free, reoccurring dream, windfall. And Ruben's next, and before he even talks, I want to say, you do love the background vocals on this one, right? All right, Ruben, you're up.
Actually, I've never paid that much attention to the background.
You won.
I was gonna say, David, you brought up an interesting point, and it's one of the things I've always kind of liked about Joni is she takes occasionally these weird left turns that puts her in an unflattering light, and all of a sudden you realize she, like in this song, she's like shining a spotlight on herself as sort of this crabby celebrity assaulting a Guatemalan maid. Like, don't talk about that at dinner with your friends. Don't put it on your record. But it's kind of what has always endeared her to me is she's got no. I mean, I assume there are people around her giving her advice on stuff like this, and she just does whatever. You know, it's fascinating to me.
Get the blackface on Don Juan, because we've never seen white privilege like this song before.
Like, play this for your friends at the Christmas party, but don't record it.
All right, Sue, you're next.
Yeah, I made some value judgments in a self-important voice. That's later in the album. This is a really weird tuning. And it's really funny. Every once in a while when I go to a Joni Fest, somebody will come up to me and say, hey, can you play guitar behind me? I really want to sing this song, right? And so my friend Barbara Little wanted to sing Black Crow and The Windfall. And I'm like, what? That was at Bob's Joni Fest down in South Carolina. So we did it, you know. I'm not sure how it came out, but it's a hard song to play. But, you know, like you said, I mean, it's not one of my favorite songs. And the tuning's really weird. Low A's. And, but, you know, I mean, I really think that sometimes she likes to get things off her chest, and she doesn't care what people think sometimes.
I feel like the fade out where she goes into the "you want everything" is such a descendant of the Chalk Mark studio sound. You know, you have all the keyboards, the background vocals. So Dave, I definitely hear what you're saying, that there's some similarities in the studio stylings between the albums. I can really hear it in this one.
Another similarity is just the collisions of flown in backing vocals, or they're not backing vocals in the traditional sense. They're kind of additional vocals that are saying things, but they're all kind of slightly below intelligibility level, so you can't really hear what they're saying, but they're almost percussive. But this album is full of that, just like the previous one was, and I find it's taking my attention away from the lead vocal a lot. But we were reading up on this thing called the baritron that she's credited as using a baritron, which is a form of mellotron, but it's a tape-based sample player. And so she could record. There are 8 tracks that you could play on this thing, and you could record a phrase and just fly it in by touching the key anytime you want it. And that's what it sounds like. She's like, you want, you know, it was sort of like chaka khan, chaka, 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 that kind of thing that was brand new in 1984. But
the Eurythmics use it, yeah.
Right, but this is now 6-7 years later, and she's just discovering it. So we're back to kind of Joni Mitchell and technology. But yeah, so that's what it sounds like. She's got a new toy and she's going to use it.
It'd be really funny if we went to her house and each track, like there's 6 tracks, she hit the first one, got to be a winner, trophy winner.
Well,
then you hit the second one, you want the windfall. Like it's each of these songs.
I mean, it's commonplace in hip hop and stuff to sample, you know, and phrases, and you just, you know, hit a key, and it, you know, you don't actually have to have a person sing it. But this was probably super exciting for her to be able to just have all these sounds. But as a listen, it's distracting, and there's too much of it. It's not, and this is why I keep feeling like this isn't really a return to form in a kind of organic way. Yes, there's some acoustic guitar. Yes, there is, you know, one tune with grand piano from years earlier, and there is good space in the opening tune because it wasn't mixed by Dan Marnian and Mike Shipley. But the middle part of the album is just full of this crowded, colliding kind of sounds with these taiko drums. I mean, they got Alex Acuna and Vinny Colaiuta playing these enormous cinematic drums like you get in modern Hollywood thrillers.
But very Peter Gabriel also.
Well, yeah, but why? I mean, what is it saying? What is it adding to the subject? Yeah, it's Peter Gabriel, and that's probably my Klein saying, "Oh, let's do that." You know, those drums are huge. But I'm all for big sounds, but I think that she didn't necessarily have her best editing hat on all the time. I think she was thinking, "Oh yeah, we'll do that," you know, and just kind of filling the space up. This is why the songs are 7 minutes long too. There's no fresh ideas. It's just like we got all these sounds coming. We'll just let it go for a while.
By the way, I just want to throw it in there. Do you know who wrote that song that Chaka Khan sang?
Prince.
Khan. Of course.
From his second album, the self-titled Prince from 1979. With a really badass picture of him riding a unicorn naked on the back cover, by the way.
There's a great back to Windfall. There's a great text on on JoniMitchell.com accompanying this album, where I'm not sure who wrote it, but it's talking about this song. I got to just read it to you. This album hits a bizarre stretch 4 tracks in, beginning with the startlingly antagonistic The Windfall, as she eviscerates a Guatemalan live-in servant who'd returned her generosity by taking her to court. The vindictive lyric comes off like a diary entry from a pampered Republican-voting Bel Air matron in need of a Valium and a frozen margarita.
Oh!
So this is the original Karen.
Oh!
So,
Karen Mitchell.
What we would call a Karen.
So we're turning cattiness with more cattiness, I guess.
Yeah, but it, maybe because we're in Southern California, but man, I can picture that girl.
All right, Jim, is your hand still up from before, or is it a new one?
Yeah, that's still up.
Okay.
It real. These were the days before the how do you, I can't think of it. Well, anyway, I think, don't we all know that it's hard to get good help? Come on, isn't this something that we all share?
Don't be pulling the race card now. There's Latinos in the room, so just behave yourself.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Listen,
poking fun at Joni.
I always have these problems.
Hey. And this white bitch can't do nothing for herself.
All right. We have Laura, then I'll take a couple more.
Hold on. Yeah. I was making fun of Joni. Now it sounds like I was dissing Hispanic people.
Oh
yeah.
Joni did it for you already.
Yeah.
The piano reminded me of a quote by Randy Remote from 20 years ago, and there was a picture of the piano at A&M, and I think it was white. And Randy said, "I always thought that piano sounds black."
All right, Laura.
Gosh, how do you follow that?
That was a waka waka waka.
Well, I will say that my mother was a maid, and she cleaned the rooms at the Stanley Hotel.
Ooh, Colorado.
Yeah, but that was.
Wait, are you serious?
I'm serious.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, I want to hear stories.
Okay,
because I heard it's like legit haunted.
Yeah, we stayed there. We didn't see anything, but yeah. Anyway, I like this song. I actually love this song, and the reason is because of the time that you and Barbara played and sang it. It was just like I hadn't really noticed the song until then, and I was like, oh my God, what is that song? And it was just like it was so complex for you two to do it, but you did it so perfectly. It was just like unbelievable. I hope you will do that again sometime at a fest. I'd love to hear it again. And
I get a good appreciation of a Joni song when I try, like I don't really know it that well, and I try to learn it, and I go, oh shoot, this is a really good song.
Yeah, you did a
wonderful job. Something that I wouldn't have thought to play myself, but it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was really incredible. And I think Joni covers a whole gamut of emotions, and if she hadn't done this song, she would have left a big one out, and everybody I think has had the the experience of somebody not being happy with them and giving them hell for it, or wanting to take them to court, and so it for me, it's like a good purge. I can purge on this song, and I can do it safely. So I love this song.
I think a good bitchy song once in a while is not a bad thing. In the Madonna universe, we have Thief of Hearts to cover that territory. In Joni, we have The Windfall.
I love that song.
Oh, me too. Okay. Pause.
Yeah, I dig this song. I mean, I understand what everybody's saying, and I'm not sure that I would put it after Cherokee Louise on a record. That might have been a little bad call. But I have to admit that when I first heard this album, I thought it was about Klein or about somebody else in the band.
Oh.
Because it wasn't, I mean, the line about Elvis is what threw me. Wasn't it Elvis used to give like his band people cars, or was it his servants? Was that something well known? I guess I just didn't know. And I thought, like I said, I thought she was writing about, one of her live-in boyfriends. And, this was probably the beginning of the end of their problems, because by the time Turbulent Indigo came out, they were no longer a couple, right? They were just working together. So I don't know, but yeah, I dig it. I think it's fun to have, some songs that are not necessarily love songs or protest songs or whatever, just in a good old bitchy song. Why not? Yeah, I liked it.
All right, we're gonna do a lightning round. We have 2 minutes to finish this one up. Any final thoughts, Chris?
The only thing I wanted to say about this song is that she uses this exact segue from this song into the next song on one of the compilations on the beginning of Survival. So she thought obviously this was a song about greed and lawyers, and that fits in well with the theme of that work, as well as the end of the world does as well. So I think she maintained that ordering exactly to the absolute frame of timing. There's absolutely no difference in the space between the two songs. She just lifted them all almost like they were one track to that compilation. So she I think seems to have put a lot of thought into the ordering of the song. So for whatever reason, she followed Cherokee Louise with The Windfall. You have to have been in her head, I guess, but it was this to the next song seems very deliberate.
I guess they're both about shitty adults, different kinds of shittiness. And the next one is too. So speaking of the next song, Chris, we'll be doing a rendition. Any pressing final thoughts about The Windfall before we move on? All right, Chris, you're gonna be performing Slouching Towards.
I'm going to try it. Yeah.
You want to do a sound check first?
Yes, please. And one.
Recording in progress.
All right, Chris is about to treat us to a version of Slouching Towards Bethlehem.
But before he does, he's going to talk a little bit about the poem, because she reached out to the estate of W.B. Yeats and got approval to rewrite and restate the poem. Now, why she didn't call it The Second Coming, I can't tell you. But she did choose to call it Slouching Toward Bethlehem, which was the title of a Joan Didion selection of essays from 1967. Now, I did a little research to see if there was anything that I could bring to this discussion about that. And the only thing that I figured is what Didion describes is kind of like a version of sort of what Joni found in Matalacrete and Tales of the City from Amistad Maupin. Just kind of like the summer of love was coming together in Haight-Ashbury, and she was writing about it. And it's a pretty fascinating piece, but I don't know necessarily if it informs this in any way other than it may have been that she just chose the title because the estate did not want her calling it The Second Coming. Anyway, she, from what I just read, also she took the lead to adapt that poem to a song because she met another songwriter who was also working on it and was having trouble fitting it to music. So she did something that somebody else was having some difficulty with. Anyway, I'm going to get a sip of water and then I'm going to start. turning and turning within the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold, and a blood-dimmed tide is loosed upon the world. Nothing is sacred. The ceremony sinks. Innocence is drowned in anarchy. The best lack conviction. Given some time to think, and the worst are full of passion without mercy. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely it's the second coming and the wrath has finally taken form. For what is this rough beast? Its hour come at last. Slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. Slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. Troubling my eyes, shaped like a lion. It has the head of a man, with a gaze as blank and pitiless as the sun, and it's moving its slow thighs across the desert sands. Through dark, indignant, reeling falcons. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely it's the second coming and the wrath has finally taken form. For what is this rough beast? Its hour come at last. Slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. Slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. Oh, 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 to be born. Oh, oh, shape of a lion. It rises from the deep, opening its eyes after 20 centuries, vexed to a nightmare, out of a stony sleep, by a rocking cradle near the Sea of Galilee. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely it's the second coming and the wrath has finally taken form. For what is this rough beast? Its hour come at last. Slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. Slouching towards Bethlehem to be born.
Wonderful.
Nice, Chris.
Very nice.
Great.
I hope
All
I'm
right.
and that there's no echo, right?
Well, when Dave was talking about the huge drums on the album, I couldn't help but think that this song might be the big offender of that one.
I love those big drums. I have to say, I was just remarking today to myself that those drums really, if Peter Gabriel was responsible for that suggestion, power to him, because the thunder was there, and
they work on this tune.
Yeah.
But there are other tunes where that same kind of sound is used, where I think it's not in the best service of the song.
I did that.
Chris, what did you respond to yourself?
What's that?
You said you were remarking to yourself. What did you respond to yourself?
Just said no. Oh, you're so right, Chris.
Sorry, I'm just being a freaking ball buster.
I remember the first time I heard this song, those background vocals that came in, kind of took me a little bit off guard. I mean, I love them, but they're kind of wild. Head of a man.
This is the song where I love the travelogue version. Oh, it's so, like, as a choir geek, I was like, yes, Oh yeah.
It's epic. That's for sure. And you know what? She made it rise to the occasion, I think, because I think she realized she was dealing with a very well-regarded, highly regarded piece to adapt. And it's kind of like if again, right. Another one she picked. She doesn't. She steals from the best. Let's just say it.
I definitely feel she did this piece justice, and then some.
All great artists do.
I have a question for the team. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
A second one, I mean. Okay, in the lyric, I've got shaped like a lion. It has the head of a man, and then, so I guess maybe I'm thinking as a photographer here, right? For me, I thought that the line was, and it's moving its sloth eyes.
Oh.
But what's here is slow thighs. So I don't think that that's a cinematic. What did Yates write?
Oh, I just had the Yates thing up, but it is slow thighs.
It is slow thighs.
So it's like a lion crawling very slowly, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's how a cat
on its haunches
stalks its prey.
On its haunches, huh?
Yeah, that's how a cat stalks somebody. It's very low to the ground, and they move one at a time, and they think they're being cool, and then they attack.
Well, I also think it's really interesting. Again, she has this religious imagery, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the lion is, again, in the Christian religion is a representative of God. So, that's why, what is a Lion Witch, the Wardrobe, right? That whole thing, C.S. Lewis, is Aslan is a kind of metaphor for God. So, again, I'm just like, wow, she just, even without, she's got the slouching towards Bethlehem, which is obvious, but then she's kind of throwing in that head of a lion. But I do like I never even thought of it with the slow thighs, where it's just, you're kind of on your haunches and you're stalking like a cat does.
That's what I got, but I'm completely wrong about that. So if the lion is God, then Yates was saying that God has a gaze as pitiless, and gazes as blank and pitiless as the sun. Like yes, there is a God, and God doesn't care for us at all. Is that what we're saying here?
I interpret the poem like this is not a good thing that's happening.
Right.
Isn't it based on Revelation?
What's that?
Isn't it based on Revelations?
I think so. And it's very topical right now. I mean, for me personally, anyways, I can't tell you how many times recently that I will remark to somebody, I expect Jesus to come walking around the corner any minute now, because just by all the signs of, all these volcanoes and tidal waves and all this shit going on. I mean, it seems, look at Putin and Biden and all this crap.
Things are a mess.
Laura, can you fill us in on Revelations?
Not really, but I can say that the lion image is not just Christian; it's also Jewish. Judeo-Christian. It refers to the Lion of Judah.
All right, Mark, you had your hand up, and then David and Sue, your hand was up. Did you still have something to say?
No, I just wanted to refer to that Revelations thing. I just always thought it was based on that.
Perfect. So we'll do Mark and then David.
I recall reading that she said that Yeats had written half a good poem and that she made revisions to the second half that she thought were improvements. But yeah, this one is kind of hard to figure out, and I never really studied Yeats or literature or anything like that. So, but she also talks about this beast that rises from the deep, vexed to a nightmare, by a rocking cradle by the Sea of Galilee. And that's obviously a reference to Christ, to Jesus. So is the beast of the apocalypse? That's kind of what I always thought, and I don't know, maybe the rebirth or the second coming of Jesus has prompted the beast to wake up and is really pissed off.
All right, we have David, then Chris, and then Ruben.
Yeah, thanks. Two things. First, I like that one of the repetitions, turning and turning, hoping and hoping, raging and raging. That's Joni, not Yeats. That's Yeats starts with turning and turning, but Joni added that repetition of the hoping and hoping and raging, which I think is pretty cool. And she, so this was released, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm just working on, 30-year-old memories. This was released around the time of the invasion of Iraq. And she referenced this as her anti-war song. I heard her on some interview saying, you should play my anti-war song, Slouching Toward Bethlehem. And I don't hear it, but there you go.
It's an awfully big war.
All right, Chris.
I think she definitely was looking for a statement to make around that time about the militarization and the wars and all that stuff going on. In terms of linking it biblically, I think she tried very hard to sound like a shofar in the background vocals and some of the chords she was using to sort of get there. So I think this draws pretty strongly on sort of that Judeo, Christian, Middle Eastern vibe that, and still kept it ominous. Now the poem starts with this, these descriptions of chaos, where order is intending to be, controlled, but it's not holding. And there's something that's, that the lack of control is growing. And I think that she really distilled it very, very powerfully, musically, whether, however much she changed the verbiage of the poetry. I don't disagree. I think that in some ways she definitely made it less archaic, and made it more modern for people to glean most of what Yeats was trying to say, and at the same time, make it relevant for the late 20th century. I think it's a really strong piece. I love it. That's it.
One line in particular that always gets me is the best lack conviction given some time to think, and the worst are full of passion without mercy.
It's funny, Mark, I for years thought that before I realized it was almost, a literal, stealing from the actual poem, I kind of thought she meant fans, that somehow she was talking about her fans. The best lack conviction given some time to think. Like, if they really think about it, they don't, jump on me. But and the worst are full of passion without mercy. And that for somebody in her, she could personalize that one line for what it is to be a famous person with responsibility toward fans. I'm sorry, Mark, but I agree. That's a really strong line.
All right, Ruben.
I think in the Yeats poem, the rough beast is the Antichrist. For surely it's the second coming, and the wrath has finally taken form. What is this rough beast? Its hour come at last, slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. And I think when you were talking just now, Chris, worst are full of passion without mercy really reminds me of the current cancel culture that's going on. It's passion without mercy, and it's hostile. And anyway, that was kind of an aside, but I think it's the Antichrist in the Yeats frame anyway.
Jack? Oh, you're muted, friend.
Yeah, I was clicking the wrong spot. I agree, that it's the Antichrist. But to me, it's also, and I don't know if there's any relationship, if anyone knows, like the history of the Sphinx, but the Sphinx is the shape of a lion with the head of a man. So I don't know if there's any connection there at all. But it always struck me odd that, the imagery is the same.
All right.
Sorry.
Jahida, you're up.
I was just going to say, I find that interesting as somebody, obviously, again, Catholic, right? And grew up watching and obsessing over the 10 Commandments, and so it was just something where it was like, you have this juxtaposition with Ramses and the Egyptians, who are, have these gods like the Sphinx and stuff, but then you also have the God, right? The Christian God. So it's very interesting to me where you have that mix, and I see that imagery together and in my head, and it's just kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. It's just one of those things where I don't know. I think I'm just talking out of my ass mostly, but it's the idea of yes, that is something that happens naturally just because of my upbringing, and it doesn't necessarily make sense, but it just is what it is. So the beast being, the image of God. I don't think I ever really subscribed to the whole idea of him being a human, and so I think the idea of it being an animal mix makes more sense to me. Does that make sense to anybody else, or am I just talking in my ass?
Makes sense.
Feel free to call me out.
I also want to agree with you on the travelogue version. I love the Greek chorus on it. I think it fits it perfectly.
All right, pause.
Yeah, no, I agree, Jahida. Even though you're talking out your ass as you think about it, I mean, it's
I do it often.
for me the topic. The topic is a little too heavy to talk about, in polite company, much less write a song about it or adapt somebody else's poem about it. But I think everybody's pretty spot on about it being, I mean, she even says it in there that, surely some revelation is at hand. So for me, like I said, with everything in the way of the world, I'm forced to think and I wasn't Catholic. My father was Catholic. My mother was Episcopalian, and I was baptized Episcopalian. Wherever you find one or two of us, you'll find a fifth or a quart liter, half gallon in my case. One thing that strikes me too that hasn't been mentioned here tonight, and I don't think it's mentioned in this work, is the rapture, because I've also commented about people disappearing and dying and going away suddenly, like for no reason. Young people, babies, and supposedly in the rapture, doesn't God take those people up before Jesus comes back? Is that not what the rapture is about? Laura, help me out here. Don't know. I mean, I did pay attention sometimes in Bible study, but yeah, I mean, that's at least what my recollection is. And like I said, I also feel like that's also relevant today, that these are kind of things that are happening today. I don't know. I think the whole world's crazy. They just arrested the former president of Honduras today for drug trafficking. His brother was convicted by the U.S. government while he was in office, and they waited till he got out of office, and now they dragged him away in shackles. Which I couldn't be more pleased about. Because he's a bad man. But there's so much of that. And all this. Well, I won't raise the whole Republican thing and that whole thing that seems to be going on politically right now. And the other thing that came to mind is during this period that this song came out, isn't when she did the photography for Green Flag Song, wasn't that all based off of like images off of a black and white TV? You know what I'm talking about, the Joni things that she exhibited in Galway.
But wasn't it during 9/11? So it was quite.
I thought it was the Iraq War. I'm not sure.
In 2007, she did Green Day song.
Right, but what was the images of?
They were actually older images. They were from older movies. Some of them were from, like, I don't know if they were newsreels or what, but they may have been some films from 30s, 40s. They were like.
Oh, but wasn't her TV set like on the Fritz and everything?
Yeah, the green gun was the only one that was working.
Yeah.
I think she said it was a flat screen TV. She did a series of paintings though after 9/11. Based on
they were the upside down ones, the one that was like a mirror image of each other.
Oh yeah,
based on the fall of the two towers.
All right, David.
Thanks. So I've been looking at the text of the Second Coming and comparing it to Joni's lyrics, and in the original, this this image is a lot more clear. I think it's a little obfuscated in Joni's thing, but people say, "Oh my God, it's the Second Coming! It's the Second Coming!" And then they say, "Oh, actually, it's a rough beast with pitiless eyes and reeling falcons around him, and oops, maybe this So this sort of hope turning to dread and it just reminded me actually of Passion Play, and as she's done in several other things, this sort of, oh my God, it's Jesus. Well, except we're going to crucify him. That this hope of redemption and deliverance is corrupted again and again and again, because it's Joni, and that's what happens. Hope is corrupted. That's it.
All right, Jack, is your hand still up, or is that from before? All right. Anyone else on Slouching Towards Bethlehem? All right. Well, it's been a great song, great first side of an album. I guess we'll wait to do our rating on our next episode. We were hoping to do this in one part, but even if we didn't have the technological issues, we'd probably still be on Coming from the Cold right now. I feel like so.
And let's hope that maybe Bob will join us for the second part.
Cool. Well, let me wrap it up, and then we'll chat for a little bit and try to figure that stuff out. Any final thoughts about side one of Night Ride Home?
Let's flip it over.
Let's flip it over and revisit very soon. Much love to my friends here. Thank you for your patience and for putting up with my bullshit. When we're talking about Yates, I couldn't help but say, like, I'm more of a dancing clown kind of guy. There's this parts of me that just don't run very deep. But I do.
It's scary. It's scary to go to the dark side.
It is. More and more every year, week, month, and minute, and second. Sure. All right. Well, we'll be back soon to tackle side 2 of Night Ride Home. If you want to check out my new albums, Burn It Up, Turn It Up in the Box. I just released the deluxe editions. I have a Patreon, and subscribe to the YouTube.
Burn it up, turn it up.
Burn it up, turn it up. We will see you soon, friends.
Hey, Sue.
Recording in progress. Okay, we're going back online because I just remembered our friend Sue Tierney, right? I'm terrible at pronouncing names, but it is your 21st birthday right now.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, because it's February 16th of where you are.
Yeah. So actually the perfect song would be, Will You Still Need Me? Will You Still Feed Me?
Wow. Yes, happy 64.
Okay, for real though, I sang it to Les all his birthday, and he was not pleased.
No, I just sang it to my sister. You're as old as my sister. 2 weeks. You are 2 weeks younger than my sister.
Well, let's sing Happy Birthday to Sue before we turn the recording off.
Let's sing 64.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday
to you. 64, motherfucker.
It's Jack.
Play that weird minor chord.
Play that minor chord.
So I'm going to send you a link to when I'm 64 that I made.
Bye, everybody.